What's going on, everybody?
What's up?
How's it going?
What's up, Asadasa? How you doing? How'd you like this E3?
I thought it was okay. FUNKNOWN.
It
It was pretty good. You want to just jump right in, get right into it?
Yeah, I'm FUNKNOWN. That's Asadasa over there.
Yep, this is me, Asadasa. Now we said our names, and I've said your name, and you said my name.
I'm Asadasa, that's FUNKNOWN.
I'm FUNKNOWN, this is Asadasa. I'm Fasadasa, and you're Fundasa?
I don't know.
Dasanone.
This is going places I wasn't expecting.
Yep.
This is wonderful.
That's what E3 is about. This is the magic of E3, the creativity, the pageantry of E3 brought now to your ears through our names.
After E3. This is E4.
Oh, shit.
What's the last E?
The electronic quad?
Know. Ecstasy.
Oh,
shit.
Oh. People,
I don't know. Imagine that.
Shit.
They give everyone one ecstasy pill.
I mean, it's getting earlier and earlier, so people need to have enough energy to get through the whole, 2 weeks that it's going to be somehow next year. So, here you go. Here's a bunch of, energy and speed and all this other stuff.
1 week for press, 1 week for everybody else.
That's something we should talk about, I think, too, at one point. Is, it being the first, public E3 and how that kind of went.
Most people definitely said it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear, I heard a few people say that some of the lines were overblown, but I don't know. When you hear a lot of people saying, it takes 4 hours at least to get to what you want to play.
It's the thing about, obviously it's the first E3 that's open to public, so I figure it's going to be something that is most likely to be, super crowded, or, I figure they haven't quite figured out how this stuff needs to be first, And I would hope that by some point next year they'll have kind of figured out what it is to do and
how to better handle that.
Yeah, take some cues from PAX and stuff, right?
Or Gamescom. Gamescom has what, 30,000 or 300,000? What am I talking about?
Yeah, even TGS is they've been open to the public for a while, and they get 6 digits in there and shit. So it's not like it's impossible to do it. What I think it's just going to wind up being, though, is, E3 is a very expensive thing, and it has all of that, name recognition behind it. It is E3. TGS, Gamescom, they're important.
Yeah, it's a big thing for the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of the problem. My thing, though, is, even when I think of PAX, which is more, obviously fan and consumer focused, my experience at PAX is, there's some smaller things that you can maybe, play and wait online for, maybe 10, 15 minutes. But if you want to play, that big thing, if you want to play, Assassin's Creed or whatever, you're probably going to be waiting on at least an hour, hour and a half line. When I went to last PAX, and they had VR. East? Yeah, PAX East. And they had the VR set up, and it was before, all the PSVR and all that stuff set out. They wanted, a fucking 5-hour wait to get on there to try that stuff out. And it was just nah, I'm good. I don't need to wait that long for VR. I kind of know what that experience is. Also, I don't need to wait that long for VR that everyone's been manhandling and sweating and all over, and I'm good.
I would not want to use any of those VR headsets or anything at a convention like that.
Right, that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm also at this is probably going to be the best VR experience that I will get, because it's a controlled environment. There's someone there running it. I have more space than I'll ever have in my room here, or even in if I were to bring up into the living room or something like that. I would never have the amount of space that I would have there. So if there's going to be an environment in which VR is at its best, it probably would be at something like a PAX or an E3. But at the same time, too, you risk so much in terms of, getting sick and all sorts of fucked up and just having to wait on that.
That's a common thing, too, getting colds or getting some kind of sickness
generally at the conventions, right? Now you're going to give yourself, an extra vector to get sick on because you're putting the shit directly into your eyes, But that's a separate thing, too, right? I think the difference between this year, and this will kind of segue into some of, the E3 stuff, is that for this particular experience at E3, you're waiting for so long, and when you think about PAX, because they are more consumer focused, even if you're waiting 2 hours long for, to play or see the new thing, let's say PAX was there and it was Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. That version of Spider-Man you're probably waiting 2 hours to play. It's probably at least going to be a playable version of Spider-Man. There's going to be an actual demo. Maybe it's not going to be too long. Maybe it's only 10, 15 minutes or something like that, but you'll actually play it. Mm-hmm. Whereas over here at E3, they were giving these basically just theater demonstrations. So you would go through and you'd wait for 4 hours, and you'd go in there and you would watch someone else demonstrate Spider-Man. So you didn't actually see a controller, and the difference between that and what you got at the actual conference was you saw like an extra 30 seconds worth of gameplay, and that was it. So like you actually didn't really get much more.
Well, they also shared some. Well, that's against. I was about to bring up specific Spider-Man.
Right.
So maybe with other games they share some more details and something like that.
Because when you compare it to like when at the Sony conference for Spider-Man, they just played the trailer for Spider-Man, went on to the next game. This one, you actually had someone there telling you what was going on and walking through it, which I would have preferred to have happened at the press conference, which we'll talk about. But that's the only differences between it, is that you had someone that was now walking you through the demo and playing it. And otherwise, you would just get the trailer you'd watch, and that would be the same thing. So it's not a matter of like at PAX, it's like you can wait, and at least you have a control in your hand, and you're doing it.
Yeah.
So like I feel like a lot of the developers this year also, so it was like, you know, there's a setup and the space and stuff to accommodate for all these extra people. But then there's also like, can the developers create demos and demonstrations that are different from what they would normally be providing media during these things? Because media is used to like, okay, here's a control demo, I'm gonna maybe touch a controller for 1 second, because that's what happens during like Judge Week, right? Is maybe they'll see a game that's in early alpha, they'll hold a controller for a second to see that yes, it's like a live game, it's like it's not like they're just watching a video, and then they'll give the controller back to the guy, and the guy will then do the control demo. So like that's something the press is more used to, but like is a fan, is someone that's spending $200 to go to this event, are they going to be okay with that sort of an experience?
I'm curious to see how much money they made from this E3 and specifically how it'll change logistically in the next one.
Mm-hmm.
If they'll do maybe specific press days or whatever changes.
I wonder too.
Because I mean, just looking at it, we obviously didn't go, but just looking at it, looks way too congested. What?
This year.
What?
We didn't go this year.
Oh right. Oh, I see it. I see it.
You see three it.
Yeah, but no, it looked so congested. I wouldn't want to go to E3 looking like that though.
Nah.
I mean, granted, we would have to pay a lot of money to go because of the flight, which I'm sure is the case for most people unless you live in the area. But that's just a personal preference. If I'm going to be spending that kind of money, I wouldn't want to wait on 6-hour lines and
it's one of those
someone
things
breathing down my neck.
Right, you know, like you have to kind of all confined with everything.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I've been hearing a lot of even media people, and like over the last couple of years, where like they don't even go to like the press conferences anymore. They just stream them, because that's like the common thing is that the best experience is the one you get at home. Because like, what difference is it between you being there or just watching it on the stream? You get the same thing. Maybe like the stream hitches or some shit, but for the most part, you're seeing the same footage.
Yeah, if you're going to E3 just to watch the press conferences live, then that's probably not worth it.
Well, you know, I guess, and that's another thing too, is that as fans, you can pay the $200 to go, but I think there was some miscommunication on what you can get, because with that fan badge, you cannot get to see the press conferences. That was still just for press. So I think a lot of people were buying these things thinking it's like, oh, I'm going to see that Microsoft conference, and it's like, nah, because that's not for you, you know. So it's you can't get into that.
Imagine being that person showing up.
I'd be so tight, and I'd be like, I would be
so
tight at everyone.
To see a conference,
right?
Just getting a stiff arm at the entrance.
Not for you. Not for this guy. Nope. Get out of here. Influencers only. But you know, that's kind of the thing, is like you have to go and like you have to figure it from like the media perspective, right? Because it used to be in the same day you'd have to go like 3 different types of like locations and stuff. So you have to go from one end of like Los Angeles to like this other one, then you're all in this other crowd, and you have like very tight times to get there and shit. And it's a lot of hustle to get there, and they have to set up the cameras and do all this other shit. Or you can just rent out a hotel room and just stream it and talk over it, and people will watch that. So it's like, what would you rather do? It just makes more sense to do that. That's what I've kind of seen more people moving towards, and less of the actual attending of the press conferences. So like it seems to me, and this is kind of the issue why the E3 needed to open to the public, really, right? Is because it seems like E3, for as relevant in the name that it is still becoming less and less relevant, right? So, you know, we can get to when we get to the conferences too. So let's get into the conferences, and then we can kind of
talk over some of that.
Well, you know, let's start off with, you know, we had our previous podcast that you can check out over here.
We just ran through straight the big, all of them except for Devolver Digital, right? We didn't talk about.
Yeah, and the PC gaming show.
And the PC gaming show, right?
We talked about everyone else though.
Yeah.
But if you want to check out what our predictions were for that stuff, you can check it out right there on the side, pointing at it. Look for it. And you could see what we thought, some of our hopes and dreams and stuff. But let's just go in from like some of the beginnings. Like first off, we had first conference was let's talk about EA real quick. Let's just go for it. Was there anything about EA you saw that you thought was like that impressive or memorable?
Other than, one, just off the bat, they shouldn't have teased Anthem.
Yeah,
I was hyped for Anthem from what they teased, but they should have just saved it. I feel like it would have had a bigger impact, even though a lot of people liked what they saw anyway.
Yeah.
But it would have, I think, had a bigger impact if they just saved the whole reveal for the Microsoft conference. But overall, I thought it was average. I got what I needed out of Star Wars, and we talked about that in the previous episode.
Yeah.
I saw Darth Maul looks really cool. We can get into the details of the things, but
yeah, there's like if you feel like you have enough to say about it. For me personally, I think what they showed was like boring because it looked like more Battlefield. Whereas, like, I feel like before, so like they had this whole like big
Battlefront specifically you're talking about.
Battlefront, yeah. So this big like Battlefront thing where they played like a demo and they had some people commentating over the game and stuff.
Yeah.
But right before that, they brought out like it was a video from John Boyega, and he's like, "I'm in it. You guys asked for it, and we did." And they made like all this big deal about the story mode and all of that stuff. And that's the thing that I had said previously. I wanted more of, and then I was thinking, oh, now they're going to show me,
if anything, to bring you in specifically.
Exactly, and then
they didn't show
instead of showing anything story related, they're like, oh, here's.
And that game's supposed to come out relatively soon too.
Right.
When is it?
October.
It's October, right?
I think it's October.
I was gonna say,
October's real crowded.
Yeah,
which we'll get into.
The end of this year is kind of looking stacked.
Bananas. The beginning of this year was crazy. This end of the year is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Yep.
Just as a hot take off of this E3, I think it just goes to show further that this industry is healthy. We have a lot of games coming out, a lot of strong games still releasing throughout. I don't know. It seems like you want to argue otherwise, but as far as like if you want to play something,
right,
it got it for you. I'm guessing you're gonna go on terms of surprises and maybe innovation.
Right. So like I think like I can take the extra angle from it, right? Where it's like I agree with you.
A lot of people have, that's one of the common criticisms you see of this E3 that there wasn't any really big ticket surprises shown.
Right. That was actually kind of the big thing was like when you get to something like the Sony press conference. They showed 2 new games, Monster Hunter World and Shadow of the Colossus Remastered. So
those 2 games, though, specifically got me so excited.
Yes.
I'm not even a Monster Hunter guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like, all right, I'm finally going to jump into this franchise. Granted, I'm going to wait to see how it goes afterwards.
Well, let's talk about it, because like, I figured we'd get into it, but let's go into it.
Anyway.
Yeah, fuck it, let's do it. It'll be fine.
Fast and loose, baby.
Exactly. It's the only way to do it. Monster Hunter looked weird. I don't know what I think about Monster Hunter. As a person that has played...
the franchise? Or okay, you're about to say.
Right. So, like, I've played most of the Monster Hunters. Like, there's been some I haven't played, but, like, I got the first one on the PS2 when it came out here. Played a bunch of them on the PSP. I've gotten all the 3DS ones, and I bought it on the Wii U. Like, there's some of them that never came out here, and like there's like Monster Hunter Online and all this shit. And like I know enough to know that there's like Monster Hunter, and then they usually have like the U, and then there's the G rank. Like I know like that they have like a real fucked up like system of doing things with the games, right? Yeah. So like I'm like in it, but I'm not like fully in it. So when they showed this new one, like I was like, all right, I guess, but like all the other stuff surrounding it are kind of like, well, at its core, it should be getting me more into it, because my take is whenever I play Monster Hunter, and I've probably played more of it on the 3DS than anything else, is that I'm there, I'm hanging out with some of my friends, and we all have our 3DSs on us, and then it's just like, want to break out Monster Hunter 4, and we'll fuck around with it for a little bit, and then that'll kind of be a wrap. And then like I don't really think about Monster Hunter for that much more until the next time we're hanging out, and then maybe we bust out and we play it. But then it's also something where like maybe I'll try it out myself, and it is very obtuse. It's an obtuse game. And I know a lot of other people and some of my friends are way more into it, and I have a conversation with them, especially after the reveal, and it's like Monster Hunter needs a shakeup, but I don't know if this is the shakeup that it really needs. So it's like,
so what that you saw from the trailer didn't grab you at all?
So in the trailer, it looked like there's a lot more sneaking stuff and the open world style of it. I also think for myself personally, the colors were very muted, whereas I think that a lot of the Monster Hunter games have like very I wouldn't say like they're like overtly colorful, but some of the monsters are like deep reds and like very dark blues and stuff like that. So they're very like vivid.
To be fair, we didn't really see much.
True.
We only
that's true.
saw really one interaction.
But some of those monsters are monsters from previous games. So I have the base comparison to make from that. So I could be like, this is Rathalos or whatever the hell his name is. They're all really fucked up names, so I don't know how to pronounce any of these things. But like I can look at this one and I can see it has that, and I'm like, I know who this guy is and what he generally should look like. And like the one that generally is like deep red with like, you know, black stripes on them, and then you have this one which is like
you have some familiarity of what they've shown so far.
Right, so I can make a comparison between that. But you know, the whole concept of the game is that they're trying to more westernize it, right? So they're trying to make some of this stuff less obtuse, make it more open world, make it more open to that western style. But like I had mentioned, every time that we're playing this game, it just kind of happens. And we're hanging out, we're playing with each other, and we all bust out our 3DSs. This game's going to have drop-in co-op and online and stuff. I don't think this game's going to have any same-screen co-op. Because the way that it's set up, with like the drop-in, drop-out, and just the fact that it's on a TV screen, it'll be pretty tough for you to actually get someone else in the same room to play that game with you, unless you're... I mean, I guess they could do...
Have Monster Hunter games had split screen before?
Not on the console, at least to my recognition. You've been able to bust out in the 3DS and play with one another.
Yeah.
And that's what you can do.
That's the same thing as what they're doing with this.
You couldn't with this. So like if I'm in a situation right now where me and 4 of my friends are in the same room,
but the only reason you can do that is because it's on a portable.
That's exactly the point. So that's Monster Hunter feels like it's such a portable game. So you're making this game that is westernized and trying to streamline a lot more certain aspects of the game, and that could be for good or for bad. Like I'm not necessarily against some of the stealth stuff they've shown. I'm not necessarily against being able to use
at least
medicine.
At least you're still open-minded though, you know.
Right, like
because it all depends on execution. Because obviously, if the game is fun, you're gonna give it a chance. So.
True, but also at the same time too, like the exact situations that I'm in it, I'll never be able to get for this game because we're all hanging out watching TV, and it's like, oh, let's bust out Monster Hunter. I can't do that if it's on this same thing. I can't even be like, hey, let's put Monster Hunter on the screen and let's all play it together, because in that same room, we'll never be able to do it.
I mean, you could bring your TVs over.
True, but that would be so much more.
A battle station, set up a little LAN party or something.
Right. You know, short of doing that, right?
Idea for... you know, what you would do for a portable.
Yeah, except for a portable, you know, like I have the 3DS on me. And it's also something with the situation being is that that's just what the game has been. Like, you know, they've made console versions before, but whenever I played the Wii U version, which is the last one they've brought out here in America, I would play that, and then, like, you know, I would transfer shit over to my 3DS, and then I would go over to wherever I was going, and then we would play from there or whatever. Or, like, I can play online, and someone else has it for the 3DS. Or in August, they're coming out with Generation double X for the Switch. So that would be the perfect thing, because you just have the game double cross, and you can take that game, toss it into the system, bring it with you, and then you have a portable, and you also have something you put onto the screen. So now you have something that removes that totally portable aspect, and you're putting something only on the screen. So this is also part of that westernizing aspect, is because in Japan, they want more of that portable shit. Whereas you move over here into the West, and you can see that they probably want less of that portable stuff. There's a lot of crying out from people.
I think it's less that. It's just the fact that it's on console.
That's the thing, is that people, when they're playing it, it's like, I don't want to play it on the 3DS, I want to play it on the console.
Right. I don't think they approached it that it's a Western market, let's make it not portable. It's just a matter of, it's a console game, so it can't be portable.
Well, that's why make it a console game.
Yeah, it is.
Right. As opposed to making it a 3DS game.
Oh, now you're talking about
Switch game.
You're talking about Double X now?
No, I'm talking about Worlds. Like, it was, I think, the specific design of them saying, I want to make World and put it on the PC, the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4 was them. And it's the thing that they've even gone out and said is it's an attempt to capture that Western market. Yeah. There's 60 million PS4s out there, and in Japan there's only 5 million. They need to get to that higher market base. Yeah. They have the 3DS, and they have people that are playing that, and then they have people that are kind of getting a little sick of like the game kind of being what it is. So let's shake it up, put it on a whole new thing.
So what I was saying was, it sounded like you were coming at it from an approach of that. Just the fact that it was a console game, that they didn't want to make didn't want to make a portable. I mean, that they just wanted to, because there's some nuance I guess I'm missing here with how I'm articulating myself, but
well, I mean, the standard for Monster Hunter is that people in Japan play it on the trains with each other. So like they generally don't play it on the console. They've come out with console only versions of the game before, which was like Monster Hunter Online and stuff that was on like the Xbox and on the PC and stuff like that. So they've made similar games that were just strictly console games.
Yeah.
The Wii U game came out on, like, they've had Monster Hunter Tri, and they've had all these other games that were on consoles, and generally speaking, they haven't been as popular as they have been on the actual handhelds, because the standard style of play in the Eastern world is for it to be on portables. And you look at things like even console numbers, there's way more 3DSs and portables and mobiles that are in uses than there are consoles. So the specific decision to make something that's console based is something that is inherently more Western, because that's trying to capture that audience that doesn't exist in the Japanese market. So if you're trying to make something that is on consoles, then you're trying to kind of get those people on your side to expand and broaden that style of game.
Because initially the impression I got from what you were saying was that it was a knock against it. But maybe
well, it is to me if I can't play with my friends. I can't play in the way that I want to. Yeah. Because I'm never going to be in a situation that we're in right now when we're on the TV. If we wanted to play Monster Hunter right now together, we couldn't. We couldn't play Monster Hunter World together.
We could.
Unless we brought a TV, or like if I bought it on my PS4.
Obviously, it's less convenient, but still.
Right, but that's a pretty big deal. Like, I mean, like, there's convenient and there's inconvenience, right? You know, like, you have the difference between, like, having to bring over a 75-inch TV.
Not expecting a portable game out of it is what I'm trying to say.
Right, but that kills my use for it, because my use for it is in that co-op same room style play.
You like your Monster Hunter?
That's the only way I've ever really played it. You know, like, it's never an online game. The online aspects of Monster Hunter is stuff that Western audiences wanted way more than Japanese audiences wanted. And I'm used to that style of having it being like, okay, I can play online with friends. We never really do this, though. It's just we're hanging out together, and it's just like we all have our 3DSs and we play Monster Hunter.
So how do you know they didn't want it? How do you know they didn't want it?
What do you mean?
Just that. Because you said they rather have Monster Hunter portable.
Because it's the style of play that they do. You're not going to be playing
But that doesn't mean
online.
that they don't want a console, like, in addition to what
But they've had console ones. That's ones that have never sold
though?
as much. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Online?
The Wii U one I can play. The Wii one I can play online.
Yeah, but that's on the Wii. You know, that's completely.
The Wii was a popular system. You could play it online. The Wii U one, they've come out with console.
I think there's a pretty sizable portion of the gaming community that considered the Wii dead, like in 2009.
Doesn't matter.
At latest.
Doesn't matter. It was still 160 million.
I mean,
that
if
was
that's
sold.
the last time we got a Monster Hunter game on console,
The Wii U.
I think this is a pretty.
No, the last one that came out was the Wii U.
Oh, Wii U?
Yeah.
Well, that's even worse then. That's even less people playing that. That's even less people playing it.
It doesn't matter. It's a moot point to talk about the sales, because if you had Try, which came out during like 2007,
it's not a moot point, because that's why it's a good thing that they're making this new one for console, because now it has a wider market to appeal to.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But that's what's different as opposed to it, and that's what I'm trying to get to the point of, is that you've had previous games that were online in the past on consoles, and they didn't really have an audience there, because the style of gameplay for that is that it's local playing together. Now you've had a game that is solely based on consoles. That local aspect is gone. So now you have to only rely on online. And those previous games on consoles, again, they've come out with games on these consoles and PCs that were called Monster Hunter Online. Monster Hunter Tri was a game you can play online. Monster Hunter 3G was a game you could play online on the Wii U. So these were games that you could play online. The audience wasn't there for a console, because Monster Hunter has always been big in Japan. Has not been big in the West.
Do you see this game turning out the same way as the other ones did?
In what way? If they're going to sell more? Well, that's the thing. So, like,
no, I mean, I'm just saying in general. It doesn't just matter. I mean, I'm not just talking sales. Like, how were those games received?
I mean, 3G was a mainline game. People loved it. So, like, the Monster Hunter Online, people didn't like as much. It was a spin-off. But when they've brought Monster Hunter, then like 4 and 4G and GG and X Double Cross and shit, like, those games have all online, and it wasn't like anyone was against them. It wasn't like anyone was complaining, but those were concessions that were made deliberately for online Western audiences and attempts to get and capture them. Whereas in Japan, there wasn't really so much of an aspect of like, we want that online so much, because whenever they play it, it's on the train, hanging out with each other. So online doesn't really matter, because they're going to be with each other in the same room to play. So it doesn't really matter. And that's why having this game that's just going to be on a single screen sucks, because I can't get that one experience out of it. Then you have other things that are in there. And like I said, you have stealth. You have these things that are kind of in there where it's kind of really railroading you on certain aspects in terms of like helping you. Like there was that mist that you can follow to help find stuff that they showed. Then they had like a demo that showed more things that they showed behind closed doors and stuff that seemed more Monster Hunter. But like I had said, and like the whole pitch that they have is an effort to capture that Monster Hunter audience in the West, because it hasn't been there before. But then you have the problem now of like, so you have this game that...
So it hasn't been there before?
The Western audience. Right.
Okay, all right.
I never said the Western audience was there before.
I'm just busting your balls. Go ahead.
Right. So the Western audience hasn't been there, and they're trying to get and capture that Western audience. Again, 60 million PS4s are out there. 5 million of them are in Japan. So they need to capture that 55 million market that they don't have any aspect. Or
how much more did they show of it beyond?
It was like a 30-minute video that they showed.
Beyond the conference?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, like it was a playable demo, and then it got leaked, quote unquote, because I think it was a controlled leak because there was a lot of complaining. But that's neither here nor there. So like, you had something you can kind of see some of the gameplay and stuff, and like people were able to play it, and it is an attempt to westernize it and get that audience to capture it in here. But like, from what I had seen, and to kind of collapse all of this stuff together, a lot of the people I know in the same vein for Monster Hunter are like, you know, it's not really kind of doing the thing I want. You're trying to get in this audience that hasn't been there before, but you're not letting me be able to play it in that portable style that I really want. And you're not being able to really make it so I can have these aspects of like, the Monster Hunter series needed to be changed. But what it really needed in terms of change was the fact that you're using PS2 models still with PS2 animations. You still have these things that are limitations where like you have zones, but that was mostly because on the PS2 you had, you know, hardware specific limitations. So now you have an open world game, but you still have zones. Like there's all these things that like they're changing.
Oh, there's zones in world?
Yes. So like when you go into it, it's open world, but there's like a little like narrow
Section
parts
off.
with like vines and shit, and that goes into the next zone.
Yeah.
So like there's stuff that they're changing. So like obviously the models look better, but then like even in the video you can see like some of the animations were still kind of shitty in that PS2 way, and you can recognize like, oh, this is the way Rathalos usually moves and stuff, and so on and so forth. Other aspects that like, you know, getting very esoteric into it, because like parts of the Monster Hunter community really like being able to do things like, in order to find out the amount of damage you can do to a monster,
It's
you
on
need
the
to
visual
like,
design of the actual models and whatnot.
right, outside of it, actual gameplay mechanics is like one of the things is like you actually need to like fuck around with a monster and like hit him and poke him with different weapons to find out. And like,
a lot of discovery.
it's like a big thing in Japan to have like these big like guides and stuff and like discovering that. But now in this game, it's like you hit them and like numbers pop up. So like in like an
Although
RPG
that's an
style.
option, you can disable that.
Right, but like, you know, like it's again the attempt to make it more of that Western style to more
You think that'll be
streamlined.
Default?
Probably.
Default.
I imagine it will.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have a lot of these streamlined attempts, which is not necessarily bad, but like, you know, at the very core, you have something that seems to be not necessarily hitting the fan base. And I don't know if it's really going to matter to people who didn't care about Monster Hunter before. So I don't know if you're serving any community, because you're not serving the people that are your base, and you're not going to really be attracting that new base. So I'm interested in seeing what happens with it, but I didn't get a sense from watching this that people that didn't care about Monster Hunter before now all of a sudden did. And I didn't get a sense.
Me.
Right. So like, you know, outliers, right? But like for the most part, from what I'd seen,
from what
I'd seen online, I didn't see anything that was like, I never played Monster Hunter before, but now I'll give it a shot. Or again, not to be literal, but like I saw less people saying, I have never played Monster Hunter before, I'm going to give this one a shot.
Okay.
I saw more people saying,
which you can't distinguish if they're new or
right. What I saw was more people saying they're not giving me the Monster Hunter that I want. And they're not giving me a Monster Hunter I want when it's available. So, like I had mentioned, that Switch game is coming out in August, and they came out and they said, we're not having any plans to localize it right now. Whereas Monster Hunter World is coming out, and they're going to globally release it in first half of 2018, and they're giving it a big push. So, like, a lot of Monster Hunter fans are like, well, fine, I'm open to trying out Worlds, but like, why not give me this other one that actually has what I want, so I can have that and then also try out your new thing. So like, why would you not do that? And that seems to be a lot of like the takes I have from it is like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to like this new thing. I would like to be able to have this one thing that I know I'm going to like. and then I'll try your new thing. But like you're forcing my hand to try out this new thing that has aspects that aren't appealing to me, and I'm less excited by that. There's also just straight up that Capcom has no faith. Like it's hard to place faith in Capcom because the last couple of times they've really tried to reboot a series, they haven't really fucking fulfilled that promise. And I think about things like, and I look at some of the recent games they've come out with.
Yeah, you can even extend that beyond Monster Hunter. You know, you look at something like Marvel's Capcom Infinite.
Exactly.
That's a lot of
Street Fighter 5. You look at like other attempts to like kind of reignite audiences, like Devil May Cry, Dead Rising, and it seems like Monster Hunter has been the one series that a lot of fans have been happy that Capcom hasn't fucked up and hasn't tried to do something to and made a mistake and fucked up. This one seems like now they're actually like they're going for it, and that could be bad. So there's a lot of people worried about it. But to bring that back home, you know, I'm someone who is like kind of laissez-faire about Monster Hunter. I play it very casually. It can go either way. I'm open to trying out and seeing what's open to this new one. I think it's shitty that we're not getting the other one, but like when I look at this one, it doesn't necessarily.
You think that'll be permanent though? We'll never get the other one.
I think we'll get it afterwards, but that still kind of sucks to get it a year after or whatever. Like it's something where it's legitimately coming out in.
It's an artificial
2 months.
decision because it's transparent what they're doing.
Exactly, they're distinctly making it so that the Western audience is starved for the Monster Hunter content, and then this is the one they need to get. And, like, for me, I'm at a position where it's like I can go either way, but, like, for me, they haven't done enough to sell me on, like, this is streamlined to hook me when I am kind of, like... So I am the person who's, like, quote-unquote, in the Monster Hunter ecosystem, but, like, so casual. So, like, if you were to streamline shit, I probably would be more interested in this. But I look at this one, and, like, it hasn't done anything to really kind of capture my interest in it. So, like, when I look at some of the people who beforehand are like, well, I don't give a shit about Monster Hunter, because, like, what are you doing in Monster Hunter? You're, like, tracking a monster, and then you gotta hunt him down, and you have to do all this other esoteric shit, and, like, well, you're cutting out some of the esoteric shit, but, like, the core of the game is still what it is. I haven't really seen too many people that have been, like, extra hyped about that aspect. I've seen people that were before, like, very about Monster Hunter, continue to be about Monster Hunter, or say, like, oh, this one looks fine. And, like, I guess, like, it's good that now they're saying it looks fine, as opposed to saying, But, like, it doesn't really seem to be, like, igniting the audience in the way that, like, I think they're hoping it would. You know, you have this new thing and the initiative to try to capture these people who are stagnant or just not in that ecosystem at all. And I don't know if it's really getting that.
I just hope the more they pull back on it, pull back the curtain, it'll be things that'll please both sides.
I hope so. Yeah. But, like, I'm not too sure. I guess it depends on when 2018 is supposed to. They said first half. I don't think it had a specific date. But then, like, you know, there was a response. And then, like I said, you know, they had that demo that was behind closed doors, and then it got leaked. And I think that they leaked it to kind of get it out there to try to generate some positivity, because it was more demonstrative of what that game is as opposed to the trailer. Yeah. So the trailer was very, like, bare bones, and it looked very bland, and, like, that's usually generally what Monster Hunter trailers are. Like, I think back to, like, the Monster Hunter 4 trailer, and it was like the big deal with that one is, like, you can jump. And, like, that was kind of, like, the big thing they had added, brought to the table. But, like, with this one, it was kind of like, well, you know, if that's what they're doing, they need to sell it on it. So they had the argument before with, like, you know, let's actually show it in demos, and then let's kind of get people to maybe get more on board.
So it's safe to say you're cautiously going into this one.
Kind of, like,
you don't want to open your heart fully to be disappointed.
Pretty much, you know, like, yeah. I'm at a point where what I think I'm going to do with Monster Hunter is I'll probably, because I have my Japanese account on the Switch, I'll probably just download
it anyway,
double cross that way, and I think I'm good. Yeah. Like, unless, like, as
you play through the entirety of Persona,
right,
in Japanese, I'm sure you'll be,
you know,
well, I'm sure there'll be guides for you. I was gonna say, right. I'm sure you'll be fine, but who really knows?
Monster Hunter, so, like, Double Cross is weird because it's been out on the DS for a while, the 3DS, and I think there are, like, translation patches and shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure I'll be good, and, like, that's fine, but that kind of sucks. I have to do that still. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really what I want to do. But it is what it is, and, like, that's probably the way that I'll do it. And, like, as time goes on, as it gets closer to Monster Hunter, maybe they'll do something to make me actually, like, feel passion for it or something. But, like, right now I'm kind of like, meh. So, like, maybe if it comes out and I hear really good things. But, like, for right now, I'm kind of like, you know, I'll import it and I'll be straight. I think I'm good. I don't know if I need anything more than that. And then the other thing that they had that we had mentioned before was the Shadow of the Colossus, which looked beautiful. But it's Shadow of the Colossus. I know what that is. Very nice looking game, though. Yeah. Also, PS2 game, late PS2 game, remade for the PS3, and now out now on the PS4.
Remastered to the PS3. Remake and remaster are completely
Well, this is a remaster, though, right? Because it's a new engine, but it's not like they're adding stuff to it or anything, right?
No, it's a remake. I know that there was some terminology, semantics going on in gymnastics and whatever. But no, you can tell all the assets are new.
Well, right, it's a new asset, it's a new engine and shit, but they're not actually adding anything to it, so it might as well be.
It would have been cool though if they added like the cut content as bonus stuff after you beat the game.
Right.
But no, they're not adding anything more to it. Although Ueda did say that they have the original controls as an option. So it makes you wonder if they're gonna modernize it for default, and then change it, or at least it's cool that they're given the option at least, because I would want to play it originally how it was. Although I'm curious to see what kind of changes they would make to it, but at this point it remains to be seen. So you weren't too hot on.
I know what that game is. Yeah. Like that kind of gets to the point where like how we even got into this part, right? Is the health of the industry, right? Is that those are the two big things they showed.
Right, you were wrapping it back to surprises,
right?
Other than
so like the two big things that they showed that were new that we hadn't known about as known quantities from the year before were a remaster of a PS2 game, or a remake, or whatever it's going to wind up being, and a westernized version of a game that has a niche audience currently in the West. So like those are the big things they kind of added. And that is something that's a little worrisome, because like when you really kind of cut that down and you remove all of known quantities, and the only real new thing you're seeing was Monster Hunter from Sony.
Could some of that though be just the mistake of them showing things too early?
I agree. I think that's probably a big part of it, but that also winds up being like, then how healthy is the industry, where when the systems are
there was definitely, as far as like now, it's different than it was in like the first 2 years of this generation. It was definitely kind of slow for the Xbox One and PS4.
Right, but that kind of portends the issue.
Not that
right?
I'm justifying them releasing these things way too early, the trailers and whatnot. But
well, you have think about what it was, right? Like there's Kingdom Hearts. Remember, we saw that years back. That game's not coming out till like 2020. They showed Final Fantasy VII, right? That game's not coming out till 2020. Right. We saw Shenmue, and then that was recently delayed into 2018, and we're lucky if that's going to happen, right? Because when the last update that they had was like a dude in the city, and we talked about that, throwing his arms up. So like, cool, there's a dude in a red shirt throwing his arms up. Like, I have no fucking clue where the hell they are in terms of like actually making progress in that game. Yeah. So like, again, 2018, but I doubt it. And like you're at this point where like you saw things like God of War coming out 2018. Looks like a great game. I'm actually kind of excited for it. But like it kind of sucks to have something where that's like, I look at what's coming out this year and it's like nothing. And like I was sold on all this stuff beforehand, and none of those things are really going to come into fruition until next year. And that portends as a possibility of being a little bit more unhealthy of an industry when you have to sell me on the console and kind of like play a little smoke and mirrors game to kind of get me a little bit excited for it on the possibility of things.
That's always been a thing, though.
It hasn't been so much, though.
They've always shown games that are either get delayed for years and years or just never come out.
I'm not going to say they haven't. They certainly have. But it's been something where this year specifically, because the only thing they had to show was those same things again, is where it ends up being a problem. Because last year is when they showed it, but at least in other years when You're
talking about everybody, or just specifically Sony?
I'm talking about most of them. Because I think that like when I look at like Ubisoft, and I think they had a lot of new shit. I think that Bethesda played their cards and only showed stuff coming out by the end of the year. So like you had a lot of people playing different things, but like at the end of the day, it ended up being again a lot of known quantities and a lot of people.
Yes. Because a lot of that stuff is on PC too. Even during the Xbox conference, some of the stuff that is new to consoles have existed before on PC.
Exactly. So like it's a common criticism, I think, across the board, which is that this is
The
like
known quantities.
it felt like known quantities in a holdover year, and a year that should have been one where people are now used to these systems, and now this is where the games come. And this didn't feel like this is now games coming. This seems like, wait, you still need to wait for the games.
I mean, a lot of people have been saying this has been an excellent year so far.
It has.
Especially Sony for Sony fans.
I don't think just for Sony fans. I think for anybody that likes games. Like, I think that first year, the first half of the year has been fantastic. But when you think about it, and I mean, to go off on a slight tangent, for Sony fans, it's because we got Persona 5, which was 6 months after it came out in Japan. So it was supposed to be out earlier than that, and then it got super delayed. We got Yakuza 0, which is like amazing that we're getting all these Yakuza games, and I love that we're getting Yakuza, and then we're going to get Kiwami in August, and we're going to get 6 at the end of the year.
I feel like there's a Yakuza flood.
Right. Finally, after like years of like
A renaissance.
we didn't even know if we were gonna get a 4, and like 4 had to be like a download only game, and like 5 too, and all that stuff. Like, you know, the Yakuza series has ebbed and flowed, but like Yakuza 0 came out in fucking Japan 3 years ago, and it was a PS3 game also. So like it's great that we're finally getting it, and it's a fantastic game, and it's one of my favorite games I've played so far this year. But like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like Sony or Sega was working on this game and like this is them getting used to the system, when this was a game that was on PS3 and PS4. Like, the first game that they actually made was Kiwami. I have that Japanese demo on my system from 2 years back. So like it's great that we're getting it in August, but like that was because of all the translation holdovers and shit, and them not thinking there was an audience, when turns out if you actually put like effort into translating and putting the game out, that people actually care about it. So like that's a separate issue, and that's some of the other things that kind of means like, and that's when I also kind of feel like it's one of those things that show that is the industry as healthy as it is, because sure, it feels like things are good right now when we get these things that are time delayed or released later, but like when we look at like the near slate in the future, and we look at what is kind of coming out, and we have this year that was supposed to be more of like, and typically in the console life would have been, here's like, we have mastery of this system now, we know what to do with it to like really wow you and get you like that mid-cycle like game that's like, you know, a meat of a system. And then this one was like, hold off.
You don't think Horizon? Oh, what you said you played through Horizon? Did you play through Horizon?
Nah, I lost interest in it at the
How
time.
about Neo? These are games that people.
But Neo was originally a PS2 game.
That's what the game
Neo
that
and
just came out?
IOH.
Yeah,
that was a
but
PS2
the
game
same exact
that was
game?
delayed so long that it only came out eventually on PS4.
I was asking you as if no, that I knew, but
Right, but like that's the thing though, is like finally
yeah, but does that
we're
really
getting
take
these
away?
vaporware games, then like they're coming to fruition finally, and that's
Vaporware.
cool.
Damn,
Like that game was in over a decade. If you out there for a decade, I honestly, hot take, would probably say Kingdom Hearts is vaporware if they didn't come out with a random trailer that has a new world, but like that game is nothing, you know. But like it's hard to really say like the industry is as healthy anymore, when typically you would be getting these games that are significant, and now instead you're being told to wait for them to come. And what it feels like more is like 2 years ago we were sold on the promise of these systems, and smoke and mirror style, we were told what they were going to have, and then that never really came to fruition because I think they needed to. And there was a question at the beginning of this console generation of, do people want a new console? And I think that there was like a specific part in which people were trying to sell that, and like that they've got the console out there. That was a crazy question
to begin with, though. Anyway,
kind of and kind of not, right?
Explain that.
Because I mean, I can get why at the time, in a recession especially, people would not necessarily know if they have a desire to buy $500 systems that would not necessarily have huge visual improvements, which is a thing that most people see optically first off, obviously. So like, it's a hard question to kind of say if people actually want to make that commitment to a thing. So like, I can see at the time people not necessarily wanting that. You also have at the time the rise of mobile and cheaper games on that. So like, if you have to sit there and say, am I going to sell a $500 entertainment device to someone when right now they need to work 2 jobs to pay for their home? Like, is that going to be something that I can actually feasibly say they want to do?
Yeah, but to paint an umbrella that the industry didn't think it was going to move on or wanted to move on from the 360 and PS3 gen.
But that's the thing though, because like they had those things for so long and people were used to them, and they had a 10-year console generation, and like you would think that eventually you want to move on, right? But was there an audience to move on because people are so invested in this one thing? And then usually the thing that makes people want to move is graphic fidelity. So like when you look at some of these, the games too, but those games could have come out on the Xbox 360. You know, like a lot of those games too, and that's the thing too, and we've talked about this previously, is like I don't feel like the systems that I got, and we talked about this in the last podcast about the Xbox, and this can kind of segue into some of the Xbox X stuff too.
Yeah, we're jumping around.
Is that I don't feel like I got anything out of my Xbox One because...
But you should note that you have a crazy computer and you can play a lot of that stuff on your computer.
Right, I also have a PS4. But that's the thing too, is like I bought the PS4 and like I got engaged in that ecosystem, and then I have the computer that I buy stuff on, so I'm spread across that. But like when it comes down to the Xbox, like I didn't really ever get anything that I need for it. And when I do think about the PS4, I do think about the fact that like I have this computer that I can play games on that would look twice as good still on the computer. And when you think about certain things, like we still, like they're trying to sell us on 4K. We still don't have 1080p 60 games, right? Most of the games are one or the other. Like we still haven't gotten games across the board that are both. And you have these systems that are like, they were kind of undercooked and underpowered when they were sold. So like...
That's, you can't... like right, you were talking about prices and people not wanting to pay crazy prices for a new machine.
Right.
But in order to have 1080p across the board, to have that kind of hardware, we're not at that place yet. To have,
well, that's the thing, though. But then
affordable.
you would need to wait, and that's when the 360 and stuff would have been. That's why the question was, do people want a new console yet? Because it's always going to be a question of, like, eventually,
I think people wanted a new console
you
like
have to
2
put
years
something in
before the generation ended last.
I don't know. Like, I mean, like, I get the argument at the time, and I get the part too. And, like, again, like I said, too, like, I still don't feel like the promise of these two systems has been fulfilled, PlayStation or Xbox One. I don't think they've gone and done any of the things they needed to, and we're 3 years deep in where you should be at that point where those things are. People should have familiarity with the console and the hardware and what it is that it's going to do, and they should be able to pump that stuff out, and this should be the year where we're seeing games that blow us away. Instead, we're seeing the same things last year, and, like, just a little bit more. This seems like it was E3 2016 Part 2. And that kind of pretends to being an issue in terms of health of the industry because, like, you have holdover years, and that's fine. And then eventually you recover, and it is what it is. But, like, this is a part in time where, like, they are still trying to sell us an Xbox One X. They are still trying to sell us the PlayStation 4 Pro.
But they've also come out and said that they're fine as long as you're in the ecosystem. Like, say, if you already have... an Xbox One, or
which is a smart thing for Microsoft because Microsoft can do that, right? Like Microsoft is going about it the right way.
But that was the same thing with the Pro, and the Pro and the X I feel have taken the same approach as far as like you don't have to get these systems. These are for
now,
right?
For now, you know, and that's going to be the same thing. Like, you know, the thing.
So it's not like they're trying to get every single person that plays on their games immediately to buy them.
Except yes and no, because obviously for Microsoft they would love it if everyone was on an X, because that's also the thing about the X. It's a win-win for everyone, is that it's 4K supposedly right off the bat, not super scaled, and people can design for that. So you have something that actually pushes people to actually do 4K in true 4K, as opposed to the PS4 Pro, which is all like up-resing and stuff like that, and not really true 4K. So now you have something that's supposed to be powerful enough that really should have been the system that I think we were sold 4 years ago, or we should have had to wait
but then
until
that goes back into what I was saying with the price would have been like
then we would have waited those 2 years. Like I feel burned.
But another 2 years with 360 and PS3,
I think that would have been fine.
People will.
For what end? Because like you would have got these games that look better, like but like do they? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they didn't take advantage of these things in any real way, or like I feel like
there's like open world games is more dense. I mean, sure, you can argue like The Witcher 3, for example, could have been done to some extent in the previous gen, but like you can't tell me you're gonna have the same exact experience from The Witcher 3.
Sure, but that's a difference between a half step and a full step. And like, do I feel good having spent $400 on a half step? And do I feel good 2 years later being asked to spend $400 on another half step?
At some point, you got to make that jump though, because people are already.
But that's the problem, and that's why people were saying,
gen.
are there going to be people that actually want to move on to a new console generation?
You're talking about like PS5 or Xbox?
I was talking about 2 years ago, because when they're selling you on it, and that's why they needed to sell you, and I mean you, not just you as a person, I mean you, but they needed to sell us on the console, and like the hopes of like everything's going to be 1080p and 60. You're going to be able to do these huge open world games.
Well, they never made that kind of outlandish promise. 1080 60?
For sure.
Everything's gonna be 1080 60?
Absolutely. Like that was the thing that you were sold on for this. That was the dream. That was what you were sold on for this.
No.
Just like how you're being sold right now on the 4K, everything's going to be 4K and all this other shit and 60 and everything. It's going to be fantastic. You were sold in that same exact way on like this being 1080p in the next generation. And then it comes out and it hasn't really been the next generation.
What I'm saying is they're not making those kinds of big promises that across the board games are going to be 1080 60. You know, there's a lot of I feel like you're not giving the marketing a lot of credit.
I don't know. I feel like I'm giving it a lot of credit.
It's definitely better now than it was back then.
In what way?
Well, like I said, how they're not saying that like the PS4 Pro, not every game is going to be 1080 60. It's going to be up to the developer.
Well, the PS4 Pro is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the PS4. When the PS4 and the Xbox One came out, the thing that you were sold on and the reason as to why you want to get this now as opposed to keeping up with your 360 or PS3 is because this is going to be able to do things like 1080p 60. It's going to be able to do that, and you're going to be able to get those games more often. Then that never came to fruition. Then you come out with the PS4, which is these half-step consoles, which then are like, well, now you can get 480, you can get 4K, and you can have boost mode for some of these games.
They're substantially more powerful than the previous generation.
The Pro or the
PlayStation 4 compared to PlayStation 3 and Xbox One compared to 360.
Sure, but we never got anything out of it that really like used that power in a way. Like I said, like
I think that's a separate. I think we might be going too deep into this anyway because this is
possibly, but it's a conversation worth having.
So then, what about Ubisoft?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Like I mean, obviously the Mario Rayman battle that we had seen previously.
Yeah. I feel they had a good showing of that game.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of skepticism still, even after because obviously there was a lot of dismissal when we first heard of the leak.
Right.
And then when they showed it, I feel like a lot of people focused on what like the things we weren't supposed to see, the marketing of like, oh, we got to convince the gamers, you know, with the stuff behind closed doors we're not supposed to see as the audience, you know. But as far as like what they showed us, it looked very interesting. You know, the art style was very appealing. The combat looked really fun. You know, it doesn't. Mind you, I only dabble in XCOM.
Right.
But it seemed like a nice take on what that formula is. I liked how they had an emphasis on melee attacks. You know, it seemed like you got some bonus damage or modifiers or multipliers or whatnot from getting actual melee attacks versus strictly shooting.
Right.
So the bosses the boss look cool. The reveal of the Donkey Rabbit.
Right.
Donkey.
Is it Rabbit Kong? What is it?
I don't know. It has a specific
It has a name. It does,
okay,
but
yeah.
I'm not sure.
So now I'm just very curious to see like what else they're gonna do to the Mushroom Kingdom, or just Nintendo characters, because you know maybe it's also not just Nintendo characters. I mean the Mushroom Kingdom, since there's Donkey Kong. Maybe we'll get some like like Captain Falcon. That would be crazy if Captain Falcon shows up somewhere in that game. Now that we got Metroid though. We gotta get that Captain Falcon back.
We gotta get Donkey Roid. We gotta get. Yeah. Donkey Roid cross Falcon Roid.
Yeah. So, what did you think of Rabbids?
I mean, I thought it looked good. Like the XCOM stuff was, like you said, I think it looked like very well brought over into what it was. But like, I feel like in the marketing beforehand and all that stuff too, where, like we've had a discussion about the dismissal, people and dismissiveness and people had and all that stuff. But I think we knew it was going to be an XCOM style game beforehand from some of the leaks. So like when I saw it, like it was like, oh, right, I think I knew this, but it was like, oh, this looks really good. And like I think it like looks like very active. Like you brought up that you can kind of go up and like slap someone, then run into one of your characters and jump off of them and then get behind cover and then shoot them.
Yeah.
And like that seems really cool.
Stuff was cool.
And like when I've looked at from some of the stuff like outside of the conference, like during the treehouse and stuff, like so like the way it's kind of set up is that you have a part where like you can explore around the world, right? Which
that doesn't seem too appealing to me. I know going into it I was a little excited to see what the exploration was and how deep that would go, and we spoke a bit about that because you know they specifically said 35%.
Right.
Again, things we weren't supposed to see.
Right.
But that then set up some level of expectation where I was hoping for something more than what seems to be just equivalent exploration of like 3D World.
Yeah, I still don't really know what that is. Yeah. Like even from what I've seen from it, so like there was a part where I saw where they were like collecting red coins, and there were like chests and stuff. Like I'm very like I think it's smart to focus on the battle system, obviously, because that's like the thing.
That's the core of the game.
But like, you know, and the game's coming out in 2 months, so like you kind of want to sell them on something. But like,
which is good too. That's a big bonus too. We're hearing about it, and it's coming out soon.
Yeah, it's like it's right out the gate. But like I got no clue what you're doing in the world. So like you have these world sections where you're doing something, and then you find these flags, and there's like an arena, more or less. And from what it seems like is that like, you know, in your traditional XCOM style, you want to like send dudes off, and like you're not necessarily clustered together as a unit. Like you're trying to like pick off, and like in that RTS way, like you go and you send people off and you fight against different people.
SRPG.
Yeah. You know, like you're going into these different strategy aspects of these games to kind of like take out as many people and try to end it in a turn or something, right?
Although, since you said RTS, how cool would it be if we get a freaking Nintendo RTS?
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I'd be down for that.
I mean, I'm just down for anything Nintendo. any spin on it using Mario characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, granted, it's not like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. You know, I'm over here a little scarred from those games. I remember when when they first got revealed on a slight little baby tangent. I was so hyped, but you know, that failed.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's like 5 of them now for you to
5.
always
I thought there was like 500, including the DS.
I guess if you want to count the DS ones and stuff, right? There's a ton of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for this game, like a Pikmin. Like Pikmin's kind of an RTS, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So fucking let's get like a Pikmin, but like maybe you're
Speaking of
Captain
which,
N and you're
Miyamoto actually commented on that. It's still
Pikmin
in
4, right?
development, yeah.
Yeah.
Pikmin 4. And it's because, you know, there was some confusion or some people thinking that maybe Hey Pikmin would be Pikmin 4.
Yeah.
But at least now there's hard confirmation.
It's a good thing, I guess, to get out there and say. But that game was so different from what Pikmin is. When Pikmin 3, they like talked about that. Like that was something they talked about. Like,
what do you mean? Talked about
like when they were like, "Oh, we're making a Pikmin 3." Like I feel like that was like on the Wii. Like when they first were out there saying.
So you're
like,
saying
hey,
as far as like talking about it for a while back?
Yeah, Pikmin 3, not 4. 3, because 3 came out on the Wii U. But when they were talking about that, they've been talking about it for a while. It seems to me like, and that's to go off on another tangent. They showed the Metroid Prime 4 like kind of teaser thing, right? And they also had Masuda come out and say that they're making a mainline Pokemon game.
Pokemon.
Both of those seem like reactions, so maybe they just were reactionary type things.
Yeah.
But also, like, they are outside of what they normally do, because typically, like, Pikmin was something that, like, in an interview, Miyamoto's just like, yeah, I'm working on making a new Pikmin game. Like, look forward to it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whatever. And, like, he says that for a couple years, but, like, they never actually showed, like, Pikmin 3 in development.
It's safe to expect in some, like, they've done that with Mario, you know.
Like, I think more way back. Like, when I think about, like GameCube era stuff.
It's not an extensive history, but there's, like, some you can point to.
Like, for the most part, in, like, recent years, especially, at least since they've started doing directs, they've kind of stayed away from that, like, now in development thing. Whereas in this year, they went out and they showed 2 things, which could mean that those things are closer to being completed than you would think, or, you know, like reactionary, because for Metroid, obviously we had the discussion before about Federation Force and whether or not, like, just the outcry people had for that, and like this is what they choose to make instead of a real Metroid game. So now they come out and they show the 2, and like this is them kind of saying like, hey, like, no, we actually are. We're
4.
Well, they showed 2. Like, they had 4, and then they had
both Metroid games.
2 Metroid games. Okay. So they came out and they showed 2 Metroid games. As them kind of getting out of that and saying like, no, like we are actually working on something. You know, hold off. In that same way, Pokemon felt the same, because Pokemon, after they had that direct 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. And they announced Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and all they announced for the Wii U, for the Switch, was the Wii U port of Pokken. And people were like up in arms. So it seems like they got Masuda out there to be like, hey, we actually are making like a mainline core.
Chill the fuck out, it's coming.
Pretty much. You know, like a reactionary style, like, please be quiet. Similar. So like that's like, it's hard to kind of tell if that means anything at all. But like, you know, it's exciting to see those things. we got off that from Rabbids. So Rabbids.
Let's bring it back to Ubisoft.
Let's collapse these arguments again. So with Rabbids, like you have this kind of RTS style once you get into these arenas, and the arenas are opposed to that style of thinking of I'm going to send out dudes to kill everyone and try to wipe it out in one turn. Because from all reports I've kind of heard from like people playing it and stuff that I see, it's like if you kind of separate your crew and you're not actually working in tandem and jumping off one another and doing like the slaps and using the pipes and all that stuff, then like once you're separate, like you can get fucked up real quick. So like that's a huge difference between something like XCOM, because XCOM you are like a squad and you're trying to work together and cover one another, but you do also have like scout units and stuff like that go out there and do things. Or that general SRPG style of, like I said, like if you think of like Disgaea or something like that, right? You're trying to knock everything out, murder everyone in one turn. So this is kind of like interesting because it's getting away from that. So like it's trying to like backing up from that and being like, no, actually use this active time systems to your benefit. I think that's cool.
So, hot take right now. What's your 4 team from the 8 characters we know?
From the 8?
Yeah. The 4 Rabbids and the 4 Mario characters.
Oh, do we know there's going to be more than that?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, like so what are the 14 I want to see?
Out of the 8 that we know of, what's your 4-man team?
Oh, shit. It's really hard for me to say, like, I'm not going to use Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Yoshi.
I think I'm going 3 Rabbids and Luigi.
You think so?
Oh, no, and Yoshi.
I think Yoshi's definitely in there. I feel like maybe
because I gotta have the Peach Rabbid. I gotta have the Yoshi Rabbid. I gotta have Yoshi. And then the last one?
Mario.
I don't know. We'll see. Nah, I don't know. I mean, I love Mario, but those Rabbids.
That's true.
Luigi Rabbid? Maybe. I might have to go with the Luigi Rabbid.
So what I want to know is, like, obviously, like, they showed some of the skills and skill trees and stuff, right? So I want to know, like, what, because, like, there are only, so this is, again, like, direct opposition to, like, something like XCOM, where you create a person and you get, like, these stories that are built from that character you create, and, like, you kind of can, set some of their strengths and stuff and kind of spec them in a certain way and whatnot. Like, it has more of, like, that granular style stuff. These are like actual characters. So in this regard, like in XCOM, you might have like 8 characters that know how to do Overwatch, but it looks like in this, from what we've seen so far, like only Mario has Overwatch. So I don't know, like, so like that also has such a huge effect on it, because like,
which is interesting, because then you're gonna want to switch them out,
right?
Depending on the situation.
Exactly. So you can kind of play from that and do what that is. Like it's a smart way to kind of make that work. But I'm interested in seeing where that goes. Like, 2 months away, I'm looking forward to playing that for sure. And then
I was gonna bring up another Ubisoft game.
Go for it.
Assassin's Creed. Me personally, I was excited for it. I saw that the combat looks different. Although the more, just from the conference, I was excited. But then hearing more from impressions, it seems like people are iffy on where the combat's going. And also, I've been hearing a lot of things about the loot. How there's prevalence of loot. Although I don't know how, because from the footage I've seen, it doesn't seem like there's loot scattered around. So maybe it'll be specifically after you like defeat a boss or something. Because isn't it like you have to ping or something for the loot to show up?
Something along those lines.
Like that, right?
Yeah. Like what they showed.
But just from coming from my stance of someone who doesn't, who hasn't played every Assassin's Creed, like I've dabbled in the like I played 1. I've dabbled in the multiplayer for a bit in 3 and Black Flag, but the last one I beat was probably I didn't beat Syndicate. I started it, but I went through Unity, and I really loved Unity despite all its flaws. I like the co-op nature of it, which it doesn't seem we're getting anything of for this game. But as far as like the world, I love the design of the world. I like the setting. I wasn't really too much of a fan of where they've been before, like in France or that kind of design.
Egypt's like a unique setting in a lot of ways.
It feels very distinct compared to what we've
like kind of
before.
Like even a return to original Assassin's Creed with you being in the Middle East,
right. Yeah. I liked how it seems like you can tame animals. I like the fight that they showed underwater. You can, you're fighting hippos. To me, it's very. This might be. I don't know if I can say that the year off is warranted right now, or maybe if they should have taken another year off, but that's I guess another argument.
Mhm.
But right now, I can say my interest is peaked.
Yeah.
So, how about you? And did it do anything? For
Yeah,
you?
when like it left, and I think when they first started showing it, I was like, "Oh, this looks cool."
Mm-hmm.
And then, as soon as he starts jumping on the trees, I was like, "Oh, it's Assassin's Creed," and like, I guess, but like, I'm kind of tired with that series as a person who has played all of them. So like, you know, I thought Syndicate was pretty good, but like a lot of the big changes that I saw in that still are in here. So like, Syndicate had levels for enemies and stuff. And it had like a kind of like, you know, experience system and stuff.
It had a grappling hook too.
Yes. So
And
this
you know
one,
how I feel about grappling hooks.
that is true.
I love
Well, I
grappling
mean, maybe eventually get one in this one.
Yeah,
You know,
doubt it.
meet
It would be cool though.
Cleopatra's like something or another, and
Cleopatra's whip that it doubles
Yeah,
as a grappling hook
fucking
or something.
something, right?
I don't know.
The setting seems real cool. And like I would like it to be really good. But when I saw it, I was still kind of like, you know, just looks
Been there,
like
done
more Assassin's Creed, and I needed to kind of do more to get me to care about that series in a way I used to back when 2 came out and like the 2 trilogy, you know.
Brotherhood and whatnot.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've like really kind of revered that series as like a top tier, like, you know, main, like, oh man, I gotta pick it up.
So what would you want from a new Assassin's Creed?
I mean, I think it's
Something
gonna
would you want the core to be changed that significantly? Or
somewhat, I feel like, because like a lot of
maybe a
the
different genre?
I mean,
that could be cool.
a new genre could be cool, but like I'm not against the stealth stuff. I just want there to be more variety.
Mm-hmm.
So like even with like Syndicate and stuff, like it basically ended up being like here's like a whole bunch of collectibles and shit, and that's whatever.
Yeah.
But then like the actual gameplay in and of itself from mission to mission was like, okay, so follow behind this guy, and like stay outside the yellow reticle, and it's like, oh, if it goes red, back up and go hide. Or like, oh, sit on this bench and listen to a conversation. All right, cool. It's like you're building up towards these assassinations by doing like the same shit constantly, and that gets very tedious and repetitive. And then you have the main missions that were always kind of like, well, fun, right? But then also at the same point too, like I never had an impetus for those games to feel like I needed to restart it. So like if things went wrong, I was like, fuck it, and I just stabbed the dude and bounced. So like a lot of the times like the game just kind of devolved into like, all right, so I'm gonna try to do something cool. Well, that didn't work out. I killed the guy and I left, and then I ran far away, and then a cutscene happened, and that kind of like kills, because the nature of that game is basically like if you, with the way it kind of is currently at least, right, is you murder the dude, and then like if there's no real payoff or whatever for that, then it's just not that interesting, and that makes the whole thing uninteresting, because like you have to do a bunch of uninteresting shit to get to the point where you murder the big assassin dude that you're trying to kill or whatever, and then you try to do the cool thing like come in from the roof and like wear the costume and do all this shit, and then something went wrong and you just put a fucking sword through the dude and then ran, and it's like, well, it was cool that I had the option to poison him, or like that I had the option to like blow up this thing and stuff.
It
but
just
like,
didn't play out like that.
it didn't work out that way, and I just ran the dude through with a sword and bounced. So like that kind of cheesed that off. So like it was just a series of uninteresting shit. I always found in the Assassin's Creed games the most interesting thing to be a lot of the current modern day stuff. And they fucking ruined all that with Desmond. But like I don't know if they can ever bring that back, but like if they could somehow make me care about that, that would be cool. But like I said,
know I'm in a minority with this, but I would like a futuristic Assassin's Creed, something that takes place in the world that Desmond's in,
right?
Or shit, aliens or something.
That always seemed like what they were building up towards, right?
Yeah.
And then it ended up being like, so spoilers for Assassin's Creed like 3 or whatever, right? Like Desmond wasn't important at all, and he just dies. Yeah. And there are aliens, and like the aliens like killed him. like it's been so long, I don't really remember, right? But like that's like.
And they said that Desmond, I mean, the Animus is gonna have a role in this, didn't they?
Right. Like it feels like they kind of need to get back to that roots. It was cool they did like the fake Ubisoft like stuff that they did in the other games, where like you were walking around the game environment and like they were making games and shit for people, and like it was cool, and it was novel for Black Flag and everything. But like I feel like that animus stuff that kind of all ties it together, and you need to really kind of have an overarching thing. All this First People and Minerva and all this alien shit is like weird, but it's also been something that they kind of have, like, I think Syndicate was the first game at that point since like the last 3 games before it to actually have any of that stuff come back. So like I feel like they need to make forward progress in that stuff, for better or for worse. So that would be something I'd be interested in seeing. But that I won't know about, I guess, until it's out. Like, that's out soon too, October.
Yeah. Anything else from Ubisoft?
Far Cry 5, which
didn't really do much for me, honestly.
Yeah, like I think it was doing more for me before, and then I saw that it was basically more Far Cry.
Yeah.
And
although the full co-op is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe if K-Clue gets it. But
yeah.
Right now I'm probably not gonna play it.
Yeah.
At least not day one.
I don't know. I'm in a spot. Like I obviously didn't pick up Primal, but I bought 4, and I liked 4 well enough. And for 4, I was at the point where I was like, oh, maybe I'm tired of this. But there is something novel about it being set in America. There is something about, I'm interested in, like, so the kind of, like, to reiterate a point that we made earlier where, like, it seemed like this is reactionary. So, like, they had 3 or 4 weeks ago, they had, like, all the Judges of the Week, and they put out, like, an initial trailer for Far Cry 5. And it seemed to be, like, more serious in tone and, like, setting up all the cult stuff and stuff.
They came out and said that that's not the case. It's not trying to make a political statement.
Exactly. So, like, that seems like something that's directly related to all the backlash they kind of got for that. So I'm curious to see what that game still winds up being, because that ends up not being a game that's not coming out till I think like next January or something, right? So that's a 2018 game too. But like the concept that they initially had was something that got me interested, because I think that's a route that I think you could take, and I'd be interested in seeing. I thought The Crew 2 looked like what I wanted The Crew 1 to be. As probably the only person, or like one of like 5 in the world, that when they initially showed The Crew, and I saw, and like I was like, this is what the next generation is. Because like The Crew was one of those games where like when they did that whole pull-out shit, you know? And they did like that, oh no, you're always connected and you're going across the world thing that's now like mad cliche. But when they showed that, like they got me hook, line, and sinker. And that's what I was sold on, like a lot of the next generation having and being consisting of. And The Crew came out, and then
we know what happened with that.
Exactly. So now you have this game that seems to kind of be fulfilling on its promise, way more fun. You know, like it just seems more like what I kind of wanted, you know, which is similar Ubisoft style, right? You come up with that first game, it's like proof of concepts, and then the second one is like the actual good one.
You go into a lot of Ubisoft games with certain expectations.
Right.
You know, a lot of them have towers, and towers have its fans, but you know, whether for better or worse, you know what you can expect.
Well, now in Assassin's Creed, even right, you have now a bird who is basically a fucking UAV.
It was like Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, or Wildlands, a lot of Ghost Recon stuff.
Yeah.
I was surprised to not see any Tom Clancy at all. Though I would have seen something from Tom Clancy. And then this is going back to EA, which we talked about, but Need for Speed, because we were talking about the Crew. I thought Need for Speed looked great.
I heard something about open world. Is it open world?
I mean, it seems like it is, but like the big thing... Is it
going to be open world like it was previously, or is it going to be...
So different, it seems like, because like this game that they were kind of...
Forza Horizon.
I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly like Forza Horizon, but what they... Like, it was something where they initially... Because like all the Ubisoft games had like... It's not just that they have a leaky ship, but like they announced a whole bunch of these things like super early.
Yeah.
So some of this stuff, they came out and they showed, and it was like... on the press release when they first showed Need for Speed, it was like you could pause, because in the other games you couldn't. It was always online and shit. So like I don't really quite know what the open world is in this one, because you can pause. Like, fuck, man, shit.
Is maybe it's an option?
Maybe
to be online or not? I don't know.
I mean, it could be. Could just be now like it's in more instance. So like if someone comes in and like they flash their lights at you and you have to like respond back or something. I don't know. Tough to say. Yeah. But the concept of that game where you're switching between different people and you're doing these heists, I think, is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I got some Spy Hunter vibes from it.
Yeah.
Even though obviously the core game is different, but still, it's transitioning from the truck.
Right.
You know, just that whole little scene got me actually craving for another Spy Hunter game.
I've always been a fan of Spy Hunter from fucking arcades and the NES.
Yeah.
And fuck it, I like the Rock version. I'll take that. But you know, and it fits with now Rock. Now you got the, you know, Fast and Furious connection, so it fits. Why not make this Need for Speed Spy Hunter? But with this game specifically, one of the things I was concerned about is that in the demo they showed where you have like the truck and it's like way off in the distance, and it seemed like there was like a bunch of like cop cars that are like fucking around you, and you have to take them all down before you can get to the truck, because it doesn't matter how fast you go, it's rubber banded to be, you need to kill the enforcers before you can get to the truck. Some of that stuff was in previous games, so like I'm not too sure on what they're doing necessarily that's new with this one, outside of like more story and like being able to switch between characters and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure on that stuff.
ETA?
I think that's also October.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this year. It's in the fall. I want to say it's October. It's either October or early November. I'm pretty sure it's October.
EA, I feel like I'm missing something other than Star Wars. Need for Speed.
I mean, we talked about Anthem.
We might as well just jump into Anthem, even though it specifically wasn't at the conference. I love what they showed. I'm excited to play with my friends, jump in with people. It seems a lot more involved than what I got out of Destiny.
Right.
And I stopped, like, I'm not even really interested that much in Destiny 2. It seems like more of the first game.
Yeah.
You know, you can argue on some level if that's fair to call it a 1.5, or if what you expect out of a sequel and whatnot. That's another argument entirely. But as far as Anthem and having that similar vibe of having a shared world experience with co-op and going out getting loot and whatnot, to me it really grabbed me. How it seems like it's going to have a big narrative focus, which is not something that Destiny had.
Right.
And on top of that, the gameplay looks really fun. I liked how it opened up with you're walking through the little town or whatnot, and then straight up you just dive off a cliff after your friend drops in, Titanfall style, and then the flying sections looks really cool. But I'm kind of skeptical right now, because like, when have you really ever gotten a really good flying game? You know,
right?
So I'm expecting some limitations with that. But if it's really as open as they're saying it is, and then you can, like, instead of going down that same path they went down in a demo, then instead just shoot straight off or go somewhere completely different, then I'm totally in. I was surprised that when they dove on the water, that looked really cool. Yeah. The depth literally is it seems pretty it can get pretty deep, this game. Traveling from the air to land to straight into the ocean, or whatever body of water it is. And then I liked how they just completely passed that one monster that seemed like it wasn't having any of their shit. So it seems like the world might be lively, which is something I really need from a open world game. Right. And I can just, going into that demo, I just picture being with 3 other friends and like having a shit ton of fun. So that's why I'm most excited for it. But how about you? What were your impressions of it?
I thought it looked good, but also a lot of it was just in-engine stuff, right? So it wasn't necessarily gameplay, right? So like,
did it say that?
Yeah, I thought so. Because like that game doesn't even have like a 2018 release date, right?
I thought it did.
Did it?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
But making me second guess.
Yeah. Like when they came out with it, I'm like, oh, this looks really hot, but like it doesn't seem like this is actual like gameplay or anything like that. And this is the original Mass Effect team, right?
Yes, from the original trilogy.
Right. So like I guess like maybe, but like it's BioWare, I think in general has,
and it's apparently the original writer too.
Right.
So that bodes well, hopefully.
Hopefully, like that's the thing is like BioWare's kind of in that Capcom position where Well, not as bad as Capcom yet, but they're at that part where they used to have such goodwill, and now I think they need to kind of regain some of that. So it's a little rough for me to kind of say like I'm in yet, because like I know BioWare and I know that they can kind of disappoint when they need to.
That'll be really disappointing if that game is severely gimped from what we've seen.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's nothing. Granted, in my opinion, it looked beautiful, but it didn't seem like anything too crazy where I would be. I would hope,
right? Like it's one of those things where like I believe that it would be something that could be on there, but also at the same time too, like.
But that's why that's why I said I was skeptical, because if it was like really as open ended,
exactly,
that's gonna be a marvelous.
Or like when you look at the other BioWare games, like even that team, like 3 was kind of, and then like you think about the other stuff that they've come out. Might be separate teams like Andromeda, but like Andromeda, Dragon Age, and all this other stuff hasn't necessarily been hitting the bar that BioWare was used to be known for, right? So like it's kind of up in the air, it could go either way, right? But like I said, I guess I have more faith in them than I do Capcom. So
I brought up Destiny. Destiny 2 doing anything for you?
Couldn't care less about Destiny after like I got the first one. I didn't get any of the expansions. I thought I read something weird today, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe you read it. Like, did they say in Destiny 2 that they have no idea what they're doing with the darkness and that they're not going to be in this game?
No, that they're not going to be in this game.
Right.
That is just when they first showed anything about the darkness, it was just like, let's just throw a label on it.
That's fucking stupid.
I mean, Bungie has been pissing off a lot of people.
I saw that. I was like, is this a Photoshop? And then we started to do this, and I didn't get to investigate more.
Yeah.
That's dumb. Yeah. That's real dumb.
Who knows, man?
Yeah.
Bungie. They always get a lot of respect in the industry, and they are good developers. I'm not going to not to take anything away from them in that respect, but the whole expectations thing. It's like I can't. It's like I can't help but to feel that I should be getting more from a Bungie game,
right?
And it's like, again, going back to like me thinking this is 1.5. You can again argue if that's fair or not. But from my perspective, I've seen what they've done with like Halo 1 and Halo 2 in the industry and the impact those 2 games had at the time. And then feature-wise, what they did with Halo 3, and then that was really the first game that had 4-player co-op and open like that. But everything after that just feels like either they're rehashing the same things, like with Reach, it felt very similar to the previous games, or with Destiny, it feels like, okay, before Destiny came out, it seemed like, all right, this is the game that Bungie always wanted to make. They're free to go where they want with the canon. They're not restricted in their with their creativity, and because they really wanted to go fantasy with Halo and stuff. And a lot of that design was changed, whether from Microsoft or just a lot of internal conflicts. And developers over the years and people who've worked with Bungie have said as much, how it was like a lot of batting heads within Bungie. And so anyway, going back to when Destiny was first pitched to us, I was hoping for something much grander in story, and that the training wheels are off for Bungie. They're loose, and it seems like, what are we now? This is the 4th year since, Destiny, when did Destiny, 2014 was it?
I think it was 2014.
2014 was it? So anyway, by the time this game comes out, it'll have been 3 years.
Right.
So 2014, since the last one came out, and it's not really hitting those notes where, as someone who checked in for Destiny for the first month and then checked out quickly after that and never returned for the expansions.
Right.
Even though hardcore Destiny fans would say that they changed a lot with the game.
Sure, but they didn't hook us because I'm in the same boat, right?
Because I was always interested to come back to Destiny, but they never really got me back. And it doesn't seem like this is really doing anything for me either.
Destiny always felt like a really good game. Like it was always very tight. It controlled well. Like I was in the same thing. I think like I got it, and that first month I played it, and then like that was kind of it, and that was when I was done with it.
You didn't go back for any expansions either?
Nah.
Yeah.
And then I dropped it, but like it always felt like it was like a really tight game, and like I was like I don't necessarily hate this, but
that's a common thing you hear about Destiny too, where it's it feels great to play. Yeah. It's one of the better shooters out there, feeling. But as far as like what they're offering, I can do loot, and I'm not against those games inherently, but it's like I feel like that also they're playing into that too, especially with how Destiny 2 was revealed, and how Nathan Fillion's character had jokes about the loot, where that was his shtick in that reveal.
Yeah.
And that was kind of off-putting for me. I get what they're going for because it's what their fan base is. They love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like I'm not trying to repeat the same strikes 100 times over to get something specific that I want.
I agree.
And Destiny 2 just seems like it's going to be more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Although some of the encounter design seems interesting. How they like that encounter they had with the Cabal.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you can make the argument that it feels still very similar to Halo.
True.
I don't know. It's right now. It's not on my. I don't know if I'm gonna dive in day one. They're gonna have to win me over. I need to see more on the multiplayer specifically. That's the last thing that'll probably get me to buy it. But I don't know.
I'm with you.
But going after the first multiplayer, I don't know. It's still not doing for me. Not doing much for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked a little bit about it when we were talking about Bethesda. Just kind of go back to, and this kind of goes into some of the stuff that we saw in like Microsoft too. So I can kind of tie them both.
Yeah.
So Bethesda, they showed Wolfenstein, and like we kind of saw last year where they had like that intro during their Bethesda conference, and they had like it was like new Colossus, and it was in there, and then like it was like, is that going to be a game? A new Wolfenstein? Is that coming out this year? And so on and so forth. So now they revealed that there is a new Wolfenstein 2, new Colossus coming out by the end of this year. And I thought it looked really good, right? Yeah. I actually really liked the original, like the last Wolfenstein they came out with, and especially because that's been a stagnant series for so long. And like they actually came out with something that was decent, right? So now I have this game that's like now taking that and like seeing what like Nazi America is like. And I think that's like a really interesting concept to see too. And that's also in contrast with like, actually, it wasn't Microsoft that we saw it at. The Call of Duty, that was at Sony, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that feeds into the point then, right? Where like we saw Call of Duty, and it did nothing for me at all.
Yeah.
And then you had something like this,
I was
Wolfenstein.
hoping it would do something. Yeah. Just the idea that they're changing it to World War or going back to World War II was an exciting bullet point.
And then it just felt like nothing.
It just feels like Call of Duty,
Also, like,
and now to be fair, you don't go into Call of Duty expecting like a radical overhaul. At least not for me. But I was hoping to see something. Maybe they just didn't demo well. I don't know.
It's hard to say. It's like one of those things too, where I can probably say current political like things, because they also went out of their way to not show any of the Nazi symbols or symbol. Like there was no swastikas, I think, at all. Was what
it's funny though. You're going to be using them in multiplayer.
Exactly. So how could you go around and avoid showing that? Like if you're not going to actually talk about that and have that be something that's straightforward and be like, listen, we're making a point, or like don't make that game. You know what I mean? Like don't avoid that thing because you're not actually helping any situation by doing that. But with that game too, like it feels like the reason you'd go back to World War II is because like you wanted to reinvent it or do something with it. Like I feel like they tried with Infinite Warfare. It's like, let's go to fucking space and like do space battles and shit. And it's like, all right, so let's go to World War II and like go back to basics or something.
Too much either. Like I wanted them to go even further with the space thing.
I agree.
So I guess to draw a parallel to this is like they didn't go too far back enough for World War II, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I guess that could still change. When we see more. But
it could be. I don't know. Like it just feels like Call of Duty's hit like a stagnant lull too. But it's a weird thing because like Call of Duty is usually bigger, and like it was just like such a in both that that conference and just like it was also like so weird because like by the time that we got to it, E3 was done. Like it was so weird to see the Call of Duty game so late in the game. Like you know what I mean? Like we had everything because it was a weird way E3 was laid out where everything started so early. Now it felt like E3 started and then like literally 3 days passed and then we saw Call of Duty, and it's like just so weird because it's fucking Call of Duty,
It's falling to the back a bit, I feel. Yeah. But I mean that could just point to other games needing the spotlight because I feel like the hype on Call of Duty has died down over the past couple of years.
For sure.
And it's not, like you were saying, it's not the big showpiece of a conference anymore. How they used to be for Microsoft.
Right, but that was why it was so because now this was like even like
which I'm thankful for, honestly.
Yeah, really I guess.
I'm glad we didn't get a freaking 15-minute demo of Call of Duty again.
Oh, for sure. I definitely didn't want a 15-minute demo, but I definitely would have liked something that was more than just like you have some like buildings blowing up and shit. Like maybe actually care about the fact that you're setting it in World War II and like that was a general feeling I had about the Sony conference in general, where they kind of came out and they showed things and that was cool. But like, I feel like there is a role that someone has to come out and kind of frame something. And without that, then like it's hard for you to kind of get like why you should care about this thing. Yeah. And like Call of Duty is one of the games that would have benefited from someone even just coming out and giving like 2 minutes and just being like, hey, like we're going and we're doing the Call of Duty thing in World War II for blah, 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 and so on and so forth, and then show the trailer and then leave. Like, you know, it's a reason that you kind of want to have some of that set up.
I think that's fine though that they didn't, because it's you know, it's another known quantity for Call of Duty. So personally, I wouldn't need that.
I think in most situations, if it was like Modern Warfare 4 or something, I probably would have been like whatever. But like, I feel like with Call of Duty being in as low, and I think that with this game being like that return to basics, I think you need to make that argument and be like, get impassioned about Call of Duty. Whereas you didn't really have that. And then you oppose that to something like Wolfenstein, where like dude comes out, gives a little bit of like a little preamble, and then like the whole actual like trailer is set up to like set up what the game is even about and like the story of it and stuff, and like it gets you like interested in that. So it's like the total comparisons between like something that has like a lot of like life and creativity and joy to it, as opposed to like Call of Duty, which feels almost like soulless in a very real way, which is like a weird thing for like World War II, you know. But that's going back into Sony. I actually wanted to stay in Microsoft for a little bit because I had totally forgotten when that thing was actually. But for Microsoft, they had also showed you know, some of the first party stuff like Sea of Thieves.
I'm loving what I'm seeing so far of Sea of Thieves. Again, to no one's surprise, really, it got pushed at 2018. From what they've shown, it looks really fun, but there is the question of like, what more is there to do? For me personally, I'm fine with like, even if that was just everything we've seen is just what we're getting in the game. I'm sure I can have a lot of fun with that. And if they're not really pitching it much more than that, even though they are still teasing other things to come. Yeah. But they're not really. You know, I don't feel it's because I've seen a lot of comparisons made to No Man's Sky, and I feel like they're not really pitching it as that. You know, as something much more than what it is. It's really just like a role playing as a pirate game. You know, right. You go out and collect treasure, and you know, I granted there's still much more to see because we haven't seen anything really from the customization. Right. You get money for cashing in your treasure, and then you can buy costumes, you can buy parts for your ship or upgrades or whatever. We haven't really seen to what extent that means. But as far as like comparing it from last year to this year, we did see more combat at least. And going from like beta impressions and whatnot, it seems like they're making good progress on that. True. So, I mean, I'm still looking forward to it. But I don't know, how are you feeling on it? Yeah, like I feel like kind of like same way I felt about last year, where I think this was a better demo as opposed to the one last year where they had like people kind of playing and talking and having fun and stuff. Like this one seemed a little bit more focused in terms of telling what the gameplay is. Yeah. But what I need for that game is like I need to know what the moment-to-moment gameplay is, not just what you're doing in that moment. And like I need to know what you're kind of working towards, if anything. Like for me personally, because like I feel like we could probably fuck around and have fun, and like, you know, just kind of like enjoy the sandbox. Yeah, there's definitely an argument to be made to like to what extent does that go? You know, exactly. How often and how much can you really dive into a game where it's going to be the same thing? And the price point is going to have a big point on that, because if you're asking $60 and you're just going to be like, hey, it's a fun sand ocean. If it's gonna be like $60 and they're gonna be like, I thought they confirmed it being $60. Nah, I don't think so. Yeah. But like I feel like even 40 is kind of like pushing it in terms of like if it's enough. I think it would be a fine price point. Yeah, I don't know. 60 though would kind of be pushing it too, because then that's a different level of expectations from that. Yeah, like I need some level of like a single player. Like I need a goal. Like to make another comparison between two, like somehow this year Ubisoft also showed like a Skull and Bones, so it's like another pirate-based game, like that kind of Armageddon. As we found out more about that, though, it's just straight up. It is only naval ocean shit, combat, right? Yeah. But so it's like the Assassin's Creed 4, right? The ship made into its own game. Exactly. But what I liked about it and the way that they presented it was that it was like, here is your goal. You're trying to be pirates that are controlling this one trade route. And you want to be like the king of pirates, basically, to like own all the trade routes. And like I'm like, okay, so I know what I'm working towards. I have like an actual goal to do. Whereas like in Sea of Thieves, like if they could just provide me with that, then I would feel better about that game.
And the general sense that I got from like a lot of people who went to like previews and like, you know, appointments and stuff for that game is that like even the rare employees were like, we know we have something fun here, but we don't quite know how to like what it is. Like we haven't like figured out how to make a game out of it, kind of. Like it's kind of like the mentality that they're kind of presenting it as. Is like we have something and we have people playing the beta and like we know that we have something fun, but like what do we want to create out of it and do with it? And that's kind of what's got them in a weird like delay situation where, you know, hopefully it comes out 2018, but we'll see.
They need to show maybe like a set piece or something.
Right.
You know how they tease the octopus or the kraken or whatever? Their next demo, if we're not going to see it till like for another year or whatnot, they need to show something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because right now it definitely seems like a fun game. Artistically, I think it looks phenomenal. The water is probably the best I've ever seen in a game. I love how you can go underwater, and it's a video game-ass video game. You can shoot sharks underwater.
Yeah.
It has a lot of that, especially in the demo that they had with the narrator, the British narrator. I got a lot of the old school Rare vibes from it, so it seems like it has some of that charm that Rare's been known for in the past. But yeah, again, they need to show like maybe a set piece. But like, all right, so let me pose this question to you: if they were to just come out and say, all right, this is what you're doing, everything you've known before, pretty much what you're expecting. If it's just gonna be you role playing as a pirate, and that's their game, and you go cash in and you upgrade your stuff, and it's just loot based, would it kill your interest or?
I mean, I think it'd be like I could wait on sale or something, or like it's one of those, you know, like I think I've mentioned even on this before, where like I've become a more bigger proponent of like Redbox, and I feel like I would probably get Sea of Thieves on my computer, but in a situation where that thing comes out and it's like I know we're gonna fuck around with it, and I could just go to and like spend $3 and get it, and then we can get a week of enjoyment out of it, and then I can be done with it, and I feel like that would be fine for me. Like whereas like if it's a $30 game and then they kind of tell me it's like, oh well, it's a sandbox thing, I'm a little bit more open to spending that. So like I think that price will be a huge determinant in that.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of depends on the situation at hand. Also depends on if we can get enough of a crew, because like if I feel like it's a game where,
and that's something we need to know more about, because they said it's not really a game you're going to be playing alone.
Or I don't think with strangers is going to be the same situation, because like
what do you mean?
I think that we want to play that with people you know on your crew. Yeah. Like I think that it's cool if strangers come in and like we can fight them and shit, but I want it to be that like we have our main, like we are our ship, and I want it to be people I know. I don't think that the experience I get from that game will be the same or as interesting if it's like me being paired with 3 random dudes. Even like the experience, or like what I've heard from like even the E3 where they had the demos, it was a better experience when you're playing with like people that you knew as opposed to like you and the random people. Yeah. But like it is everything, but it's more in this, I think, because like the nature of what you're doing
especially
is kind of
communication.
Right.
Get fucked real quick.
Exactly. There was like one of the Polygon was giving some of their impressions on the game, and they painted it, you know, the McElroys as being like a very like almost improv game, and like making humor out of that, and like some of that stuff is like only possible if like you have that rapport and you know people. Like it's a really tough thing to be like, here, I'm picking up my map and facing it towards you.
I'm hoping this game forms a community around it. Because that's one, going back to Destiny, that's one thing you can say about Destiny is that generally the community is positive on, you know, whether they're interacting with each other and looking towards the future. I'm hoping something is similar, something is fostered similarly with Sea of Thieves.
Word.
And honestly, it's really dependent on the community too, because if the game's not gonna have anyone playing it, then you're
dead in a week,
dead.
right?
Yeah, the game is dead.
No, that's true. To keep on going with like the Microsoft first party stuff, so still Crackdown. So what do you think about Crackdown?
Shit, I fucking loved it. It's again, it goes into expectations. I expected this to play on a lot of the same notes that I got from Crackdown 1, and make a lot of refinements to it. And you can definitely see that in some game design. Like for example, one example is climbing walls or climbing buildings. In the previous games, you had to be perfect on the to grab the ledges that you need to climb up. But in this game, this seems like they're a mechanic where like even if you don't, you can still like shimmy up and then grab it. So it seems like a little wiggle room. The action seems like what I wanted out of a Crackdown game. It's hitting the same vibes that it's doing everything I wanted and needed from a Crackdown game. And I haven't played that game in fucking... When was Crackdown 2? And then that was short-lived. But I'm excited to see more specifically on the multiplayer. And because I know since it's revealed, it's been known that the campaign and the co-op is not going to have a destructible environment.
Right.
And that's something that initially really grabbed my attention. And so they obviously focused solely on the co-op and the single-player element of at this E3. But the way I'm going to be playing it is either co-op or the destruction in the competitive multiplayer. So I need to see more on that. But as far as going back to what they've shown specifically, I mean, I left it very positive. You know, I love the art style. I love the simplicity to it. And I'm glad it's just coming this year. You know, we're finally getting it after it was initially teased in the Microsoft reveal. There was just like an orb as an icon.
Right.
And then they showed it the year after. And then we didn't hear anything about it last year. And it was supposed to be split in 2 parts last year. But that never came out, which I think is for the better anyway. But I don't know. Again, overall, I was positive on that.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I ended up being more positive on stuff that I heard after the fact. So, like, and I still don't know if this is the right name for it. I think it's called feed jacking. And, like, it seems like kind of like a more, like, immersive world. And, like, some of the stuff that you're doing, like the natural evolution of the skills for kills style thing, where like what you're doing is going to be something where it's not necessarily like a counter, so it's not that you've done $750,000 worth of damage to this building or city or something, but you've done enough, and like all of a sudden like the boss comes through and like they're like, I've had enough of you, and they send like these like trains that have like, you know, chain guns and shit on them at you and all this stuff, and it just seems more like a more alive world. That, and I've also heard it has like something similar to like the Nemesis system pretty much, so like there are bosses and then underlings and underlings beneath those, and like you're kind of like maybe working your way up that hierarchy. It's like a lot of that stuff I think kind of got me way more interested in it than when I first saw that trailer. And I was kind of like they buried this at the end and I didn't feel too hot on it.
Well, I mean, we're talking about E3 in general, so you know, they could have definitely the E3 and specifically to the conference. I feel like they should have shown either had a demo or shown more, because I feel like if you
that's
were
what I'm
to
saying.
just,
It's like all that stuff that I heard afterwards. You should have had
Microsoft
someone come up and
conference.
show that and say that stuff.
But as far as like E3 in its entirety, I feel like they did a decent job. But another thing that interests me in Crackdown 3 is we're seeing new enemy types that we haven't seen in previous games.
Sure.
And I was skeptical going into this. I'm like, are we going to just be shooting thugs again? I mean, that'll be good for just to get the Crackdown fix, but I needed to go deeper than that, and it seems like we are. I like the monorail that goes around the city, which gives me similar vibes to Sunset Overdrive.
Right.
Different enemy types like the mechs, even different thug types. Like we got the heavy dude, we got a guy with a shield. I feel like that's something that the previous games were lacking, was the diversity in the enemies. So hopefully, you know, we still haven't obviously seen the whole city, but I'm curious to see how each section differs from one another too, because right now all we saw was like neon lights everywhere and just a general like a similar vibe throughout the city of this little piece that they've shown us of the game.
Yeah.
So I wonder when they'll show though the multiplayer, because it's supposed to come out in October, and you figure probably Gamescom.
Yeah, I guess that would be it. But like that's also like one of the weird things about that is like, so like, you know, you said like we're talking about after E3 and stuff, but like there's certain things I guess you can glean from like the faith that it seems Microsoft has in this game, and it has had the trouble development.
Yeah.
And like they kind of showed it at the ends, and they kind of buried it deep in there.
Just the fact that it was supposed to come out last year.
Right. But like now it's like this thing where it's like it's not front and center. It's like all the way at the ends, and then it's also like, hey, it's coming out in 4 months, which is like generally also something I'm more interested in, but also at the same time too, like it speaks to the confidence that Microsoft may or may not have in it. So it's like it kind of could go either way with that, but it doesn't seem like it's something that they if it was something that I
just
think
from the fact that they didn't show the multiplayer at E3.
Not just the multiplayer, I think just like the way in which it was positioned at E3 and like the amount of attention that they decided to give it. Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to some of the faith that they have in that game.
It was odd they didn't have a demo for it.
Yeah.
You would figure it's going to be one of their big titles this holiday.
Right, and then it's just, here's a Crackdown. Here's a Terry Crews with a bunch of energy, which is cool. And then totally floundering him. And then,
it's cool that he came to the Crackdown team wanting to be in it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
He's a perfect fit for that game, too.
Oh, for sure.
And because they were trying to be coy about his involvement with the game, but then Terry Crews straight up was just like, nah, I'm gonna be a character. You don't put Terry Crews in the corner.
Right. At the Microsoft trailer was also. Do I want to talk about this part now, or do I want to say? Okay, so let's also mention. Let's transition to some fighting games. So what we saw also was at Sony, we had the Marvel vs. Capcom, and it was like the story trailer. And then they immediately were like, hey, you can download the demo. And like a couple hours later, demo was out.
I was hoping that story did something for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's novel, but
kind of.
Not even really, because a lot of it feels contrived, too contrived. Because obviously there's going to be some level of that going into the game, because why the hell are Capcom characters with Marvel characters?
Right.
But it just felt too forced,
Right. Well, it was also every line of dialogue was like, hey, Mega Man, what's up? It's like, oh, nothing, Ryu, I'm chilling. And it's like, oh, let's fight this Ultron now. And then it was like, oh, what up? It's Dante. And it's like, hey, Thor, what's good? It was like that sort of, like, everything was just kind of.
I hope there's more to
shout outs
than that. Yeah.
I hope so, but like it's like in terms of like selling me on it. And again, this game's coming out in 3 months, so like if you're trying to sell me on it, then you kind of need to have a little bit more in that, especially if your story is the thing you want to sell me on. Which I get why they would want to sell me on story after Street Fighter V, because that was a big complaint, is like there's all the stuff that isn't there.
Yes.
But like that game has a lot of hills to climb, because even when I was playing it, like I ended up saying to you, like I feel like it felt like kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, a little slower. But do I feel like spending $60 on another game that's just going to be Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that has, generally speaking, less characters? And
then
like,
you're going to have to pay additional for the DLC.
Exactly. To get a roster list that would be comparable. Because this roster list currently, and everything has been leaked at this point, is essentially less than what you would get from original Marvel vs. Capcom.
It just feels like MCU and a footnote plus Capcom.
Pretty much.
Right?
And like it's a really weird situation because like,
You know what would have been cool? They ended it with the trailer. It goes black. You don't see anything, but you hear, whoosh, Berserker Barrage.
I mean, like that would have been exciting.
But
yeah,
again,
like,
DLC.
That's the word on the street. It's just going to be like the fourth DLC pack, whatever. But it's just like, at the end of the day, you'll end up having spent all this money, all this DLC and something that'll then end up being something that is essentially Marvel vs. Capcom 3 with like 4 extra characters. And that'll be a year out, and that's like really shitty, because right now I have Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So if you're going to give another Marvel vs. Capcom game, then I need something that would either play different, and like, yeah, this is 2-on-2 instead of 3-on-3. But like I need something that would be either like vastly different gameplay wise, or like has a different enough roster. And right now it just feels like it's like copy and pasted, and like the characters look way worse than they did in Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yeah, the art design.
They look like shit.
Although I will give it looks okay in motion, but even so,
yeah.
I just it just feels like that Marvel Champions game, the mobile game.
Right. Well, I still think that looks better. I don't know if you've seen Chun-Li. Chun-Li looks fucking bad.
Yeah.
Like, she looks bad. But that's that. So, to go from that fighting game at Microsoft, I believe it was Microsoft, they showed...
the game that won a lot of those magnets of Best of E3.
Yep.
Dragon Ball Z Fighters.
Exactly.
Or Dragon Ball Fighters.
And that's like all the things that I would want from Marvel vs. Capcom style game. And it's just, they show that, they came correct, and that game looks phenomenal.
You know what's great I heard about Dragon Ball Fighters is they came out and said, because some of the criticisms they're receiving was a lot of characters that the 6 characters they have look similar in the sense that they all just like shooting beams and whatnot. But that was a deliberate
It's also
decision.
Dragon Ball.
Well, yeah, but there's a ton of creativity you can go with.
This could be a blue beam. This could be a big yellow beam. This could be a red beam.
That's a motherfucker. That's disingenuous, right?
I mean, I'd love me some Dragon Ball, but I mean, motherfuckers are flying fast and they're doing fast hits that you can't see, but and anyway, they're Kamehameha and they're just throwing out little circle discs and shit. You know what I mean? Discs.
But as far as like having those six characters specifically and having like a lot of beam attacks, they said that they wanted to have the reveal be like that, something like familiar. And
they're the ones you
expect.
Show, right? Huh? They're the ones you show.
Yeah, and something where to reveal this game, this is what you're expecting out of a Dragon Ball game of this level of action, and that gives me hope where we'll see a lot of, hopefully we'll see some diversity going forward with other characters.
Well, I mean, right away, okay, so you're gonna have Frieza, Cell, Buu Saga done. And when you think about some of the previous Dragon Ball fighting games they've done, even though we had at that point like Frieza, Cell, Buu Saga completed, they were putting out Budokai games that only had like Frieza and Cell, and that was it. And it's important for them to get out there and be like, hey, listen, you're gonna have those three things. Also, Frieza's gold, so we're probably gonna do some extra shit. So like, I don't know if we're gonna include how much of Super or whatever that stuff is, but like think about like we're probably gonna take some modern Dragon Ball into that, and I think that's like an important thing to come out there and say.
I want to see Beerus in this game.
I hope
probably
so.
My new favorite, my favorite new character.
I would be surprised. Like I don't know if they're gonna have like whatever's going on currently with like the tournament and stuff, but like I think they should have like
at best probably a DLC.
Right. Yeah. I think they could go up to like Black and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in there. But like I can see like it seems to be that if you're gonna make a Dragon Ball game, and like this is like something that's significant because it's Arc and they're like an actual fighting game company and all of the happy horse shit. But like I think that if you're gonna make a Dragon Ball fighting game in 2017, that you kind of have to acknowledge Super, because at this point Super's been going on for a pretty decent amount of time.
People can say what they want about Super, but it really did revive a dead ass franchise,
right?
And it brought a lot of interesting characters, and it's doing a lot of fun things. Where what the hell with Dragon Ball Z was dormant for how many years,
Right.
So it helped a lot for the franchise, and I don't know. How would you rather them focus strictly on Z and beforehand?
Nah.
I would like to see some Dragon Ball characters. That would be cool.
I wouldn't mind that. Like it is a bit weird because I guess like Arc and Japanese and all this other stuff. So like the game like. Theoretically, it's Dragon Ball FighterZ Z, so like I mean, it could go from like all the Dragon Ball stuff because that is technically like as far as Japan's concerned, Dragon Ball is all it ever was. It was never like a Z thing. So like that could be whatever. I wouldn't be shocked to find out.
What do you mean?
Well, it was just Dragon Ball, and then it went to Super. There was no Z. Dragon Ball was that whole thing.
Oh.
So like it never went into Z.
Okay.
And then Super was just Dragon Ball Super. Yeah, and I don't think they'll put any GT shit. So, like, I think that's cut. I don't think that'll make it.
Although I could see Brawly. And, he's not GT, obviously. But
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, but, like, I'm excited for that. I think it looks great. It's a fantastic-looking game.
And from the impressions, because, first glance, it looks like a highly technical... And I'm sure it still is. Mm-hmm. But from impressions, going from that, it seems like it's not as crazy as you would think it is.
Right.
And that has me excited, because... I'm okay at Marvel vs. Capcom, but I'm not the best. So hopefully it'll get a lot of Dragon Ball fans. And I'm just hoping a lot of people don't turn it away because it's a fighting game. But I hope they can go into it with an open mind.
I feel like it'll find an audience because you have the Dragon Ball audience that'll eat it up, and I think that the anime fighting audience will...
A competitive audience, at least.
Yeah, like Arxis brings some like real chops to it. So like I think that people that would not... And I've seen, people that would normally not be into a Dragon Ball game are kind of looking at this game.
Definitely.
Other stuff to kind of take it back to Sony, we mentioned in brief, like God of War. So like, I thought that it looked good. It's a very pretty game. They only really had the trailer and stuff for that show, but in comparison to what we saw last year. Looked to be a little bit more of like some of the stuff going on with the sun, and that could be interesting. But some of the stuff I had heard after that they showed at some of the press briefings is that a lot of like the QuickTime events are not going to be so like having to look in the corners to find like triangles and stuff, and it seems like they're kind of reworking a lot of the combat, which they had mentioned last year, but it seems like, from what it seems like, they're making like a real kind of like legitimate effort in terms of like not having it be so much of like a mashy style square triangle type game, and it still has like that dedicated sun button, so like you can kind of send him to like shoot out bows and
He's
stuff.
gonna be in the whole game, right?
I mean, seems like it. Like,
the whole demo had him.
I can see like, so like.
Now that can be a hit or miss though,
It could.
because we know how people feel with their escorts and having a little companion.
Right. So it depends on what it is, right?
Hit or miss.
It also feels like the easy thing to say is like, well, what's going to happen? Like either his son's going to die, or he's going to lose his son at one point, and then like he'll reunite in something, or like I'm sure there's going to be some section of the game in which you and your son are not there together. But as it stands currently, Triangle right now is you telling the son to do things, and it might be like he'll jump on someone's back and like kind of like, you know, hold them for you, or like he'll shoot out some arrows to like kind of shoot someone. So like you can be mid combo and like you can press triangle and he'll like do like a support move type thing. So it's an interesting idea, you know, kind of seeing them follow through on that is cool.
Some things that piqued my curiosity were was the serpent at the end.
Right.
That was cool. I want to see what. You don't really want to trust a freaking gigantic ass snake, you know, that wants to help you out,
right?
With that evil, sinister ass grin it has on.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as that they're going to be addressing why Kratos is in this Norse mythology,
right?
Which I wasn't really expecting going into it. I was hoping for it, and it seems they are. So
like a big part of it too with the son is that he can read, and like Kratos can't, and like I think that like. Some of that is going to play into a role with it, which could be interesting. Yeah. Curious to see where that goes. And then also, like, you know, Spider-Man, you know. And I don't think we talked about that yet, right? So what did you think about Spider-Man, what you saw? I know we've talked about it, but not on this.
Yeah, but not on podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved what they showed. There were some low points, like the QuickTime events. But again, you know, you can... I wasn't immediately turned off by that. I liked how the combat looked. Mm-hmm. Although I'm curious to see what, because a little turn off for me was seeing that icon everywhere that you can web zip to. You know, similar to what you see with Batman in the Arkham games with his grappling hook. Mm-hmm. But overall, I left that demo very positive on the game.
True.
I'm excited to play it. And I hope it's not too far off. Because again,
we'll see, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess there were some people saying that it would come this year, but we didn't expect it. You know, we weren't surprised that it was delayed for 2018.
You know, you mentioned the Arkham thing, and like I'm a little tired of the Arkham stuff, so I'm a little hesitant on where this game's gonna go, but for the most part, I am still looking forward to it. Yeah. The thing that I thought was very interesting, or that I was grateful to see, is like not necessarily leaning on like the Spider-Man go-to villains. So like you didn't see Rhino or anything like that, or like you know, here's Hobgoblin for like the 8th time. You know, you actually got to see a villain that I don't think has been in any of the games previously.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
So like I'm interested in like them at least going that angle. I'm hoping
like how they showed
Frisk
though. Fisk. I like how they showed Kingpin, and so I mean there could be. They said as much that there's going to be more than just having the central theme around Mr. Negative.
Right.
So again, you know, talk from our predictions on the last thing. Mm-hmm. I want to see more Spider-Man villains, but again, there is something to be said where it's that their big reveal wasn't like
Hobgoblin again, right? Yeah, it's like this is like here's Negative, who like as far as I'm concerned is a pretty recent villain, right? Like he's not like a long time villain.
I don't know.
Like, you know, he's definitely not like he hasn't been in any of the movies. He's not someone like who's one of the Sinister Six or anything.
If you think Spider-Man, because Spider-Man has some of the most iconic villains in any superhero franchise, and Mr. Negative, I'm sure wouldn't make a top 10 for most people.
So like it was a really cool thing, I think, to see him front and center. You know, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm looking forward to it still, cautiously. Hoping that it doesn't lean too hard into the Arkham stuff as a person who got very tired of that by the time that, even Origins had come out, but like still,
I really like the combat in some of the later Spider-Man games anyway. Like Ultimate Spider-Man, I feel is criminally underrated. I loved using Venom in that game. Web of Shadows had really solid combat, I thought. Shattered Dimensions, I didn't really play too much of, or what was the 2099?
Yeah,
there was another one that had 2099 and regular Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I forgot what the name was. But, you know, from what I've played, the combat was sound. So yeah, if they're mixing what we love from that with you know, the over the top nature of Spider-Man, what you expect from Spider-Man combat, with what people love with Arkham, I can see it working out really well. But you know, I can understand where you're coming from, where you're just tired of that formula.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on them to see what they can do to evolve it.
Exactly.
Especially with someone like Spider-Man, again, with the high intensity, like him jumping around and using the webs to like use the environment to hit people with, and there's a lot of interesting things they could do. So we'll see.
True.
And the details that we got after the conference were interesting too. How it's gonna be primarily Peter Parker's story and his Spider-Man, because they teased Miles
at the end of that trailer,
and they said that he's gonna have some role to play. We don't know to what extent.
True.
It seems like, for me, they did what they needed to do with this reveal, and I just hope that maybe we see more at Gamescom. If it's early 2018, you know, it goes back into the whole, if it's gonna come out at the end of 2018 next year, should we expect it at Gamescom? You know, I don't know. That's their story to tell. But
yeah, I mean, I'm.
It remains to be seen.
I am hoping, and not to like bring it back to a discussion, but like I'm hoping that a lot of the games that we saw this year we don't see at E3 next year. But I'm also not going to be right. So I'm hoping that it's not like third appearance at an E3. But we'll see how that goes. Like I have to imagine something like God of War is probably going to be holiday, so I would bet it will be at E3. Spider-Man could go either way. It's hard to say because like this year was very front loaded with games, so I can see some stuff coming out by that first quarter, but I don't know.
Any other Sony games got your attention?
None that I can immediately think of. I think Days Gone looks bad.
Really?
I think that game looks real bad. Does nothing for me at all.
This demo did more for me than the last one did, at least.
Yeah. I feel like it should do more for me, but how to put it? Like I feel like, so you have this biker dude, and like I feel like the biker aspect is something that could be interesting in that setting, but it doesn't seem like they're leaning so much on that, and it just seems very generic. And like it doesn't seem like
what do you mean specifically by generic then?
Your zombies.
That's a term used a lot, but I like, let's break it down.
I mean, generic in terms of being another zombie game and just being what that is. Like, there's a horde of things that are coming at you, and using the power of the PlayStation 4 to have waves of enemies come at you. And I'm like, cool, but I don't know. I can't care about that.
It's interesting though how dynamic it seems. Though,
it's also a situation where like right after they announced The Last of Us 2, that I'm also like I'm less inclined to care because there's better zombie stuff on this system than that. So like I don't need a mediocre zombie game or something that's just status quo zombie stuff. Like I need something that kind of either expands that and has a reason to exist, or like explore something new. I don't really need like worn zombie ground for me. I feel like there's stuff that are better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to immediately dismiss it because of the fact that it has zombies.
It's not just that
not to
too.
say that you are.
Right.
I'm just saying, it seems to be a sentiment out there.
Yeah, it just feels like too from a lot of the impressions I heard that it's just like the gameplay itself wasn't that interesting. It was
you
just
can draw a lot of comparisons to with the zombies and the whole over the shoulder looks like Last of Us, and it just seems like just recoded or whatever. It's very surface level.
Sure.
But I don't know. For me personally, the demo, how it showed, because the last demo they showed you can interact with the environment and set traps and whatnot. But what I liked about this, how you can manipulate the zombies. It seems like they're dynamic in that they maybe chase after like an immediate threat, or they can change focus on the fly. How they did with when they attacked that group of people.
Sure.
Who captured, what was it?
Who also somehow never found you, even though you were like right there.
Yeah, there's always some level of video game jank to that, right?
Sure. It was something like to make the comparison between the two. Like there was that and there was State of Decay 2.
Yeah. And
I actually didn't really care about State of Decay 1 at all. But like if I compare the trailers between this game and State of Decay 2, I was definitely more interested in State of Decay 2 because I think that had a unique kind of spin and take on it. Whereas I just feel like I had said, this game just felt like that more kind of tired, that ground, like it is what you would expect general zombie game to be. Whereas this game is more of like focused on, and even in the trailer, I think they did a very good job of like showing you it's like this is like based upon those stories and like the incidental things and like the things that happen from your gameplay and like making stories out of that. Yeah. You know, and like that was way more intriguing to me than like, hey, here's a lot of zombies because we can have that. But like, you know, I guess we'll see how it pans out. But like for now, like I definitely left that game thinking like, this kind of
lukewarm on it.
Yeah, like, you know, low interest.
Anything else from Sony? How'd you feel about that A Way Out? Even though it wasn't Sony's, but A Way Out.
A Way Out.
Jump to that.
I think looked really awesome. I think that was like a very cool concept. As a person who didn't really like Brothers too much or didn't really care too much about it, like I think that this is like an interesting, unique take on it. I think that a lot of the split screen stuff is very cool, and I think that like having this being a game in which like they're like you need to, this is a game designed to be in co-op on a couch and like play it with someone, and like, you know, I feel like that works. I also feel like it's a game that really needs to be on Switch.
That would be a good Switch.
That would
game.
be a perfect Switch game.
But they even said that when you play it online, it'll still be split screen.
Yes,
so that's a novel idea, but because I'm sure they're doing that for story. It's
because if you're gonna get the game, chances are you're probably gonna be able to play it online quicker than you would in co-op. But I do feel like they were like, it's a game where like if you have the option, play it with someone on the couch, and then if not, play it with someone online. And I'm like, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, everything should be a Switch game.
Yeah.
I love to play anything on that thing.
Yeah.
On the Switch.
But like the design of that game where it's like literally it's like you would be able to like we could sit here right now and just like toss it up and then do it on there would be perfect for it. Like it just seems like such a
do we know anything about, have you heard anything about the team that's making this game? Has he increased the number of people?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Because if it's going to be a similar a similar amount of people working on, you know, if it's the same exact people who worked on Brothers, although I'm not sure if Brothers was a game he did alone. I can't remember.
Not sure.
But anyway, you imagine it's a small team anyway, 'cause, you know. But if you just bring that team to A Way Out, I think it kind of, for me personally, after playing Brothers, it might lower my expectations of A Way Out a bit. I'm not expecting like more than like, I'm expecting less than 10 hours for a story, something very contained, and then from the demo, I feel you can get the impression that the world is a lot bigger than what it is, and I don't think that's what it's going for.
I agree.
So they're gonna have to do a good job at conveying that, because the last thing you want is someone to go in with the expectations that it's gonna be a crazy open world game, and it's this grand co-op experience where it's more of an intimate story of these two people.
I agree. I feel like I'm trying to remember if it was last year or this year, but the first time they showed this was at the Game Awards, and they had just like a little like teaser trailer. It was like the dudes on a train, and when they showed that, I was not interested in it. So then when they came out with this, like I was kind of like, oh fuck, this looks really hot, and that must indicate to me like either amount of time that they're devoting to it or, you know,
or an increase in team size.
Exactly. So like I'm excited for that. Like I do think it looks like it's gonna be good, but I do like, again, I am hoping it doesn't fall into those Brothers traps as a person who was not as high on that game as a lot of other people were when that game came out.
Yeah, it was okay. It was a interesting little experience.
Did what you thought it would.
Yeah.
You know, controls were novel.
Yeah. It didn't overstay its welcome, I don't think.
That's true too.
So.
Yeah.
Hopefully this A Way Out can provide some sort of similar experience.
I would hope.
Because if I mean, thinking of now, I wouldn't really want more than like 8 hours, you know, for something like that.
What I would want out of that game, and I was surprised at the trailer, is that I want a game where it's just like you and a friend escaping from prison. And I can play a whole fucking game like that. But then, like, they showed a lot of it being, like, you out of the prison and running and stuff. And, like, way more outside of prison stuff than inside the prison. So I'm led to believe that probably you're not spending that much time in the prison. So I'm kind of like, I'm hoping that I'm not gonna play the game, and be like, I wish I was still in prison.
Is only gonna be the first 10 minutes of the
right?
game.
You know, like I'm gonna be like, fuck, man, be like, yo, just make a whole like. Give it back. Just make more prison stuff because like that seemed really cool. And like when they're like crawling on each other to
that
climb,
was
like it just looked real cool. Like I would just play a game that's just that, you know, like that sort of thing. From Sony though, I think that was about it really.
Or anyone.
Yeah. Well, Nintendo, we didn't really talk too much about any of their stuff. So like we talked about Metroid obviously and how we bent reality to our wills.
What it was as soon as you saw a piece of the blue form.
Yes, as soon as that happened, I saw space.
Or even the notes.
When the space happened, I was like, is this? And then you started hearing the notes, and then it made the S, and I'm like, oh, shit. And it was like Metroid Prime 4, now in development. I was like, fuck. That's good.
We got it.
Real good. I'm into that.
There's so much to ask and so much to wonder about where they're going to go with this game.
So, they showed that.
They said it's going to tie into the first 3 games in some way, or at least narratively. But I wouldn't...
Did they?
Or did they specifically say because I think, or maybe they also mentioned that it's gonna lose ties, that it could lose ties. So don't expect that.
I'm not sure because the only thing that I saw was that like the way that Metroid Prime 3 kind of ended led right into Metroid Prime 2. Like it kind of like it tied everything up, and the next game in the series was Metroid 2. Now they're remaking Metroid 2 as Metroid 2 Samus Returns. And now they're coming out with 4. So the idea was like, are they going to now make it so that this is something that comes after 2, or are they making it? Are they purposely and specifically remaking 2 so that it can tie into somehow 4? And they've come out and said since that that's not the case. So I don't know if it's a new trilogy.
The connection between those 2 games,
right?
2 new games, okay.
So I'm not quite sure where it takes place. I feel like
I wouldn't expect honestly much ties to the first 3.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be shocked if it just like straight up the stuff comes even afterwards. Like fuck it, like why not? Yeah. Like they could totally do it. Like I think that by saying it's in development, even if they're saying right now that like it has no ties to like 2 or any other stuff, I feel like it's at an early enough stage they probably could rewrite that stuff if they wanted to. Yeah. The thing out of that though is that like it's not being made by Retro, so it's a whole new team.
Yeah. Internal.
Yeah. The producer is the same. I can't remember his name right now. But the producer that was on it from Retro is on it. So we don't really know what Retro is doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing another Metroid and like the idea it's coming out soon is exciting. The Pokemon was big news.
We don't know if it's soon.
Right. Well,
what are you talking about? Samus Returns.
Yeah. So we have the new Samus Returns coming out, and I think I'm now lost on when we've talked about things because we've been talking about E3 with each other like the whole like past couple days and shit, but like I feel like by putting this in there is a reactionary thing to it being like the fan outcry and stuff, but also like as opposed to like Pikmin wasn't in there
because we did discuss announcing things way far off,
right? Like I feel like if
they draw it back, I feel like I'm sorry again.
Yeah, I feel like them putting that in there is like an indication that we'll probably see Metroid Prime 4 before we see Pikmin 4. Because we didn't see like a now in development Pikmin 4. You think so?
Yeah, even though we specifically know, because we do know we haven't gotten an official announcement like with a trailer or anything for Pikmin 4, but we do know it's in the development and it has been for a while.
Well, that's the thing though, is like because it was only in like words and spoken, and it was never like anyone coming out and being like at a direct and having a trailer.
I can see them showing it like next year, then it's out within like 6 months or less.
I can see that. I can see the same thing with Metroid.
Really?
I can see them doing it.
I can't see them like showing it next year. And then, I can't see them not having shown nothing this year for it to come out next year.
I think they could for a couple reasons, but I think the most important one being is that
possibility because it's an internal team.
Right. But I also think that when I look at what the release slate is for the Switch for this year, and they've had basically at this point hit a new game a month, and I think that they have hit it so that
new is relative.
The DX games you can make whatever point you want with them, right? But they have a first party release every month, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they want to continue that, and I feel like what they want to do for this with the Switch and everything for Metroid is I think that it's something they can hit by and make their next like fall title, their big fall title. I think I can see that happening. Even if they just put out now, it's in development. I can also see it being like, early 2019, like February 2019 title. But I feel like you put that out there, and like when I look at the fact that like they have Mario, Zelda, Splatoon, and ARMS, you have like 2 new series, you have 2 spoken for series that are huge. You have Xenoblade, you have Fire Emblem to some degree. You have a Fire Emblem which is announced for next year.
That came out. That's coming out this year. Xenoblade.
Kind of. I mean, like we mentioned in the previous podcast, like they had said that like a lot of the recording and stuff was done. So, and
they have said that, yeah, but
well, with everything being like on a unified system now, and because it's so easy for you to go into a Japanese system to get it, I feel like if something is coming out in Japan, like it basically, if it is going to come out in America, it needs to be relatively quick, because most people will just go and like there is a, you can just download it right there and then. So like why do that, Like I think that and in general it seems like Nintendo's kind of making movements towards more worldwide releases with Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, even with Sun and Moon, and like it seems like they're trying to get more onto that, like ARMS, Splatoon, Zelda, like all these games, big English language and other language titles, they're all coming out relatively at the same time. But like when I'm looking at the fact that they hit all these major notes so far, and what we know about that's coming in the pipe is we have, there's Fire Emblem early next year. We know that Zelda and Yoshi are coming out, and Zelda and Yoshi are big to me, but they're not Mario, and they're not.
Yeah. No, but Nintendo can fill a month with, at least marketing. They can show those as like, this will be the big game of that month, unless you think.
Well, I think I think that we'll probably get Fire Emblem, let's say March next year, because they had come out and they said that a new core Fire Emblem will be coming out for the Switch next year. So they're at work on that. I think that that's going to be their big early next year game. Mm-hmm. Then I think of what they're going to try to get out by fall, and it could be. Like, I don't think you come out with Yoshi or Kirby in fall. I think you come out with Yoshi and Kirby, especially because they seem to be far in development. I think those are, like, kind of like spring, summer games, right? Then it's like, well, what are you going to have for that fall period? And I think that's when you kind of start saying, like, they've hit a lot of those big franchises, so what is it going to be? And that's when you start seeing, like, Metroid become a little bit more feasible for it to be something that's out there.
I'll tell you what it's going to be. You just haven't heard about
it.
The next F-Zero.
Hey, shit, I mean, I would not mind that at all. Like,
or Donkey Kong.
There would be no complaints from me about that if that's going to be the case. Like, I would not mind that whatsoever. But, it's definitely not barring the fact that they'll probably announce something and have it. Like, they do their directs and all that shit constantly and so on and so forth. But, like, the truth is, like, it seems like they want it to be that each game, there's a big game coming out each month. And that's a smart strategy. It comes out swinging, and you have something for someone to look forward to every month. So I think that the amount of time you can perpetuate that, go for it. So I wouldn't be shocked to find out that Metroid is out sooner than we think, than not.
Yeah.
But they showed that, they came out with that, and then also even Pokemon, the director is like, listen, it might not be out for like another year, but we are making a new core game. That could mean anything. Could be like, the next like actual like, generation, or it could be a remake of Diamond and Pearl, which a lot of people have been wanting. But either way, we're getting a new one for that. So that's something that's going to be coming down the line too.
There's a lot of questions with that too. I need to find out more about these games.
Well, what they said for the Pokemon game specifically is going to be a catch, find, and like it's going to be an RPG. So it's not going to be like a stadium type thing.
Said core,
yeah, but I saw afterwards people were like, what does core mean? Right. And core is like, is stadium or is XD a core? Yeah.
Okay.
So they've said like Reggie even came out and he's like, it's going to be a game in which you find and then you catch and then you battle Pokemon. So it's going to be an RPG.
Isn't that every Pokemon game?
No. Because like when you think about like the games that have been on console, we've never had an actual game in which you do that. The closest we've had is Pokemon XD or Stadium.
Well, yeah, I figure I don't think anybody would confuse the moniker of core as like Pokemon Stadium.
Depends. Because, when you say core...
So he didn't really answer the question in true Reggie fashion then. Because if they're going to ask him what does core mean, and he says, the Pokemon game where you go...
They said, what kind of Pokemon game are we going to get? And he said, we're going to get a game in which you find and you collect and you catch Pokemon.
Okay,
but when people say core, and they said we're going to be a core game... I don't even remember if Masuda came out and said core specifically.
He did.
So when he said there was going to be a core game that's in it, and there was a question of what is it going to be, or people that are just kind of like, well...
So he just answered the question of what it's going to be.
Right, it's going to be a game which it is going to be an RPG game, which is something that we have never seen on a console before. The closest we've gotten to that has been the Stadium or the XD games, which have had RPG elements to them in which you are stealing other people's Pokemon. Because like that was kind of what you're doing in those games, but it's never been something in which you are like actually going out and collecting badges and doing things in gyms and that sort of thing. So this is going to be like, again, we don't know if it's going to be like a new generation or if it's going to be like the remakes that of Diamond and Pearl that are up next or something along those lines.
Would you be fine with a remake of like a 3D remake of Red, Blue, or Gold, Silver?
I would, but also at the same time too, like they just,
I would love that.
Like they seem to be kind of, you know, with the remakes they've been going in generations. So like I would be surprised if they went back to Red and Blue and if they didn't just go with like Diamond and Pearl because that's next in line. They just did Ruby and Sapphire, like that makes sense to me to do Diamond and Pearl next.
Yeah.
And then you can add like Kanto in it or something or whatever. Like I think just the idea of having a 3D Pokemon game on the TV screen is big. Yeah. But when they announced that, a lot of people were finding reasons to not be excited for that or like to try to.
Was it trying to find reasons not to be, or was it like just wanting to know more because they're excited?
It seemed to me like
it probably a mix of both.
Yeah, it seemed to me like trying to, I guess you could say, temper expectation.
Right.
But it is the constant thing you see whenever it says it's like there's going to be a mainline Pokemon game, and it's like, well, why would they do that all of a sudden? Like, you know, it's the same. The reaction out of seeing something like Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon was a reaction of like, why wouldn't they come out with this on the system? Why didn't they come out with a new one? Yeah. And then people saying that this is what they did with Black and White and Black and White 2, which is true, it is, and then so on and so forth, and then saying like it's gonna be that like they only hired for people on development teams last March, and then that being counteracted by saying the fact that the Pokemon models are all very high quality and they're way above what the 3DS is capable of, so like they could just as easily take that stuff and so on and so forth. There's a lot of back and forth, but the general consensus has been for a lot of people is like with the Pokemon, it was just like, you know, for any reason to not give it like, because that was a big announcement. It's like to not treat it as a big announcement, not because of like I said, tempering expectations. Some of it being like, well, if you come out and you expect it to be a big thing and it ends up being Pokemon Go 2 or some shit, it's like that could be a core. Like, what do you consider a core game being? You know,
not buying it. And when they said core specifically, I don't think anyone was thinking Stadium. People were just confused of, is it going to be a top-down game like 2DS?
It is possible that there's a lot of people. I didn't see people that were confused about if it was going to be top-down. But I saw a lot of people that were looking for excuses to say it.
If you hear core, who the hell's going to get confused if it's a Stadium game?
But that's the thing, is because we've never gotten that before. And like technically, you could say XD is a core game. That.
They specifically mentioned core.
XD is a game in which you are doing RPG stuff. You are a character. You're going to different towns, and then you're stealing other Pokemon, and there's like a Dark Lugia, and there's stuff like that. That is technically an RPG, but it's not an RPG in which you are going to battles and catching Pokemon and doing stuff like that. Like it's not a core game. Like what does core mean with that? Like I've seen the argument being is like,
yeah, core is what you said. It's catching.
When I hear core, it's you catch Pokemon, and then Reggie has gone out and said that you are catching and you're battling and you're fighting Pokemon.
But like again, he didn't specifically address. I guess I need to know, like, if you have the link of what you're talking about. I'll find it. Not to do it now, but I want to see, like, if people specifically were trying to distinguish.
I could tell you specifically what I had seen from people on posts, because they were like, it was the same exact thing that I saw on.
Because I don't see anybody getting confused of what the hell core is.
Well, I don't see anyone saying it now that he's come out and said that and made the distinction on what it was. But I can tell you when I saw that announcement during E3. There were people that were like, it's saying core, but it's going to be like Pokken Tournament 3 or whatever. And it was the same exact thing I saw when it was like people that were coming out with.
Those people are fucking crazy if they think Pokken Tournament is a core Pokemon game.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Is like people are finding reasons to not be whatever about it, either by tempering expectations or by, you know, being facetious or just trying to downplay the significance of the announcement.
Ask Reggie if this Pokemon game is going to be top down, like we've seen with all the other Pokemon, the core Pokemon games, or if it's gonna be something like Ni no Kuni or.
I mean, what you got
person.
is that Metroid Prime 4 will be a first-person adventure. As for the Pokemon RPG, is currently developed for the Switch. It'll be a traditional find, battle, train type experience.
Yeah, I
So
don't think- I
that
didn't
could
see
be
anybody
3D
doubting
or
that.
whatever. But I
No, I know you see. I know you already said
Mm.
what you've seen, but I mean, I'm just curious. I want a third-person Pokemon game on console.
I can
but-
go either way. I'm fine. You know, but also just because I think that I don't know how much you've played of like XY and
No, I haven't played
Sun and
that.
Moon, whatever. Those have third-person elements to them, so it's not like they don't. So I think that if you were to take that style and put it into this game, I think that would be fine. You have 2D. They've moved on from that top-down style, like it has been. There's obviously towns and stuff,
I
but
guess
then
I should
some of the
elaborate.
towns are stuff.
Like more expansive, I guess is a better term to use than what we've seen, like enclosed in areas with the 3DS games, you know.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like even on the 3DS games, we've seen like the Luminous tower and stuff, and there's been areas on it. But the thing with that is because it's on such a weak system, it's like it runs like shit.
So I'm curious to see how far they take that then.
But
If they're using a similar style.
Kind of, yeah. Like, you know, I'd like to see what they do with it. Like, obviously, I'm hoping it's something that takes advantage of the system. That's, I guess, also why it was, like, an exciting and big thing for me is, like, if you think about, like, okay, so Ultra Sun and Moon could have been something where it is whatever it is, right? But also, like, it would have been probably that engine now adapted to and just ported over or whatever. Yeah. I'm sure they could have done Ultra Sun and Moon on the 3DS and also Ultra Sun and Moon on the Switch, or, like, Stars on the Switch, and it's, like, all four or whatever, and, like, they could have done something like that, but, like, it wouldn't have been the best representation of that game. Whereas, like, this being a game that's specifically designed for Switch and then from the bottom up seems like it's going to be something that is more in line with what you would expect out of that sort of, like, game.
Yeah.
But, you know, people, I think, are just going to be skeptical about it until they actually see something next year. And that's what he had said, is that it'll be revealed in 2018. So we're going to look at that at some point next year and then probably release date for that.
Yeah.
But those games have been coming out with pretty quick release dates too. Like when they came out with now, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon, like they were like, well, 2 weeks ago. It's like, yeah, it's coming out in like November.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be particularly shocked to find a situation in which like they have, be it at E3 next year or something, and they like reveal what it is, and it's like, hey, this is coming out in November too. So I can see that being a big game next year too. Yeah. They could go either way, especially because they have all of those assets and models and stuff. But that depends, again, if it's going to be Diamond and Pearl, or if it's going to be actually having to make another 100 new Pokemon or something.
I'm just excited for an HD fucking,
right, you know,
hopefully beautiful Pokemon game.
You know, I'm excited for
you already
Pokemon.
know what I hope they do with it. They reboot the shit and get out all the whack ass Pokemon like Electrode and fucking Voltorb. Get them out, bro. Get them out. Get them out of here.
Kangaskhan. I'm legitimately, I would probably be fine if they just came out with Sun and Moon, but it ran well. Like, I'm one of those people, like, I know what I just said about Ultra Sun and Moon and, like, you know, want something ground up. But truth of the matter is, like, I really do like Sun and Moon, but, like, the frame rate is so poor. And, like, certain areas, it just runs and chugs. And it's, like, really tough to really play. And I'm just looking forward to getting something that's in that vein that runs well. So, like, just giving me that is
playing,
good.
Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon?
I'm looking forward to playing it, but, like, I know what that experience is going to be because I know it's going to be, you know, whatever it is, new story and stuff, but it's going to be something that runs like garbage because the games have run like garbage 6 to X and Y. They've just never ran well. At the very least, like, this game, the Sun and Moon series, has had the benefit of being like the new 3DS has come out, so it uses some of that power, and they are more liberal about, like, turning off 3D stuff. Yeah. So, like, in a lot of cases...
There's no 3D in Sun and Moon at all, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, I can see them kind of doing that stuff, but that's concessions they need to make. So if you can give me a game that doesn't need those concessions, I'm a happy person. That'd be more than enough for me.
And, well, I don't want to say finally unless there's something else you want to talk about.
I can't think of anything else. I mean, we mentioned Yoshi and Kirby obviously already, and that's kind of it. So,
but I got this big smile on my face because, you know, they did it again, bro. They came out and fucking gave us an opening sort of trailer where, like, oh, what is this? This is, It's a colorful art, you know, colorful green grass, blue skies.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like Mario, but it doesn't, you know. And then the T-Rex comes out. It's like, oh, is this Mario though? Fucking maybe Turok, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the Mario Cappy, then Cappy appears.
Yep.
Ah,
and it's like, what the fuck? What's going on
I
here?
personally love the trailer through and through.
Yep.
I love how there's a build up to what we first see, a build up from what we've seen previously in when they first revealed it, and then later in the trailer, once we see Mario control the frog and some twisted evil shit going on. It constantly got me excited throughout the entire trailer, and the music was awesome. If I'm understanding right, or if I remember correctly, they made that version, or they made that song specifically for this game.
Absolutely.
That's pretty awesome.
I think, like, my understanding from like what I saw too is that it's even Pauline. The bringing back Pauline is really great too, but like it's Paulina kind of singing the song, and that's like a really interesting concept. But like, you know, they came out with that song and just like the whole everything going on in that trailer at once. Like you have this jaunty song going on in the background. It's like very upbeat and like talking about like collecting coins and all this other shit. And then you have like just like Mario taking over bodies and doing stuff. It's just bananas.
Insane. It's just the escalation in the trailer is nuts. It starts off just him running around, you know, seeing Mario get more in a 3D environment we haven't seen in sometime in 2002, right?
Yep.
15 years.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's older. That's more time than a lot of fucking.
It's more time than a lot of people playing games have been playing all their life. You know?
And just the fact that we're getting a 3D open sandbox Mario game again is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's not just that. They're really bringing in this new mechanic of taking control of enemies,
right.
And it's not just a few enemies. It seems like it's fucking expansive.
A ton of them. They were like literally like not even enemies, like straight up things that aren't like alive.
Right, and we had that game pod about the term gimmick being something that's thrown around constantly with a negative connotation associated with it. But in this game, the gimmick is of the hat is amazing, you know, and it's not something where it's just you know how in Galaxy when he just got the little spin move.
Yep.
And it was just like, okay, that's a cool little move. You know, it doesn't drastically change how you think of Mario as a.
He still has like the general
platformer.
Controls he would have had for that, right?
But in this game, completely changes everything, and it opens the door to so many possibilities with new abilities, with different enemy types, new ways to look at the environment. New ways to traverse. Oh man, I can go on for so long about this.
No, I'm with you with that. Like, it was very exciting to see like the degree to which like you know, like you had saw like that original kind of trailer, and it looks like he throws a hat and he jumps on it, and then like the way in which they've kind of expanded and built on that, where like
that looked just okay. So that's what they're doing with this game. These are some new mechanics that they're just adding on top of what we know from Mario. So this is gonna be cool. And if that was just at surface level, that I would be more than happy with that, because we haven't seen it again in 15 years. But again, them diving into this whole new mechanic is crazy.
Definitely.
It's so. What was your favorite thing he captured?
Oh man.
I mean, it's hard to say. The bullet bill was cool. You're traveling along only a horizontal plane.
Yep.
You know, there's no up and down.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what the hell's going on with that frog.
Yes, the frog for sure. I think
frog
that
looked like it was being freaking. Oh man, the disdain that the frog had in his face.
And then like that weird cutscene with like Mario kind of like on the floor with like dirt coming out, like looking disgusted, like oh god, like was that just that frog? This shit is fucked up. But
Mario got his hat beaten up. It was all ripped, and then this new character takes the form of it.
But I think my like transformation I'm kind of like most looking forward to or like interested in has to be the Maui. Like showing the trailer, it's like the little thing with the sunglasses that goes up and down.
Yeah.
That seems like an interesting concept, because evidently like the shades, when they go up, you can like see certain things, like you can move quicker.
Yeah,
but when
like
they go
the
down,
lens of truth or something,
basically.
Right? From Zelda.
That sounds super cool. Also, like becoming a person in New Donk City. I think that's got to be really fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's up with that. But a lot of that stuff, like I think like the fact that they were like you know, when they were showing it during the treehouse, they were like you know, throw your hat at everything, see what you get. And there were like certain things, like it was like even like a little pole, and like you pull yourself back and you just send Mario like flying
up.
And I'm like, that's fucking fun.
In the electrical outlet,
Yep.
he turns into a little lightning.
And you just fucking roll through that. Like it adds like a lot of like traversal and stuff. And I think that's such like an interesting way to like make it so that you, in such a broad way, open his moveset. You know, like now it's like, you know, we've played Banjo-Kazooie and stuff before, and like those types of games in which you have.
It seems like they're making a lot of changes too to the core of it.
Absolutely, because now instead of it being like something where you have to buy moves, it's like you just you go in there and you have a context-sensitive thing, and you have movesets that happens with that. So like I think that's like a very interesting aspect with that. And I think just the way it looks and the way it controls, and like some of the stuff they're doing with like even the very limited stuff we saw in terms of it being like the 2D stuff and the mix of 2D and 3D.
A lot of ways to shake up the gameplay.
Absolutely. Cool. The last thing that I do want to definitely mention about it too is like you had mentioned how you know, like it's a return to that sandbox style, but like how significant that feels when it also, from all of the things that they're saying, seems like there's going to be like, so you're collecting moons now.
Yeah.
And
like you said with the Banjo-Kazooie, it doesn't just kick you out of the world.
Exactly. So you're in that world and you can still kind of look and explore and do things. And it seems like they're saying that there's like more than even in Sunshine and 64.
Yeah, because you figure, what, 64 had 6 or 7?
6, and then there was 7 for getting 100. And then when you got the 64
coins.
DS, like they added like an extra 2 or whatever. And then in Sunshine, I think it was the same amount where it was 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's hard. It's kind of hard to believe, but we spoke about this off the recording. But where I heard Nintendo rep, I don't know if it was someone that like a producer on the game, or if it was just a booth person like hired to demo the game or whatever. But they said how some worlds can range from like 30 to like 50 freaking moons.
Right.
That's insane. So I mean, we know of I think 6 kingdoms right now.
yeah.
And then as far as how expansive they can get, we know that you can teleport to other areas from within the world.
There's these little like maps or like the little checkpoint style things you can get to.
So
you can then
it seems
quick
like each
travel
world is
to.
going to have a lot to offer.
Right.
So, I mean, it seems like it could be believable.
And just for what they showed too, it looked like there's certain things like, hey, you get up and you dress in a certain outfit, you talk to a person, you go in the door, and you get a thing from there too. Yeah. There's like a ton of shit going on in that game that's very interesting and exciting.
Yeah. Putting Mario in a suit and a top hat or a fedora.
Yep. He's got even like stuff
outfit.
that's like the safari outfit, or he had the Mario Maker construction outfit I saw.
And it's cool how they're adding things where some of that plays into the game. Where like in you need a sombrero and the Mexican outfit to get into the nightclub, and you get a moon from that.
Right.
So it seems it's going to have a lot of gameplay implications, not just surface level.
Rewarding you for exploring
cosmetics.
and just kind of looking around and stuff. And that's what I think like you would want out of that sort of game now. So it takes that old school style and merges it with some of the newer style of stuff to kind of like make it so you want to explore. Yeah. Definitely the game of the show that I was the hottest on, you know. Yeah. And I think from that, like, let's transition to that. So, like, what games did you think were you hottest on over
games of the show, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this previously. Off the top of my head, I would say Mario, obviously. Crackdown 3, Anthem. The fact that I'm actually interested to play Assassin's Creed again. I feel like I should note. A Way Out looks interesting. A lot of games I left positive on, like Ashen at the Microsoft conference we didn't really talk about. Even some indie games like Cuphead. Finally, we got a damn release date. We didn't talk about. You see, now thinking about it, there's a lot of things, a lot of games we didn't talk about, but it's
a lot of stuff happened, you know.
Yeah.
I guess for like Cuphead and stuff, like in Ashen 2, like I mean, we can go into it a little bit if we want to, but I feel like with Cuphead 2, like it's one that I was also kind of hot on, but I'm hoping that actually does hit that date because like it has been a game that we've heard about for it feels like forever, and I mean, I know they've totally revamped it, but like it would be good to finally have that game. They added single player, which is like now they actually made it a platform, whereas before it was basically boss rush.
Some of the platforming stuff looks good in this demo.
Well, hopefully, yeah. So the last one looked like kind of
it
poof.
just looked like it was just being thrown in.
Right.
So hopefully this extra time actually paid off. And coming out September, so that's not too far away.
Again, hopefully, we'll see.
Right. Well, you imagine that.
I mean,
it's like a week before release and they delay it again.
I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like we were very close to the first release when it got delayed.
Yeah, but they never had a hard. They just had the nebulous coming out later this year. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like it feels like the game's been in development for forever. I don't really remember, so like it's hard to remember. Like I just feel like it's gone from like a very simple like boss rush game to then like need to meet the original demands and like or thoughts that people had kind of had of what that game was going to be. Yeah. So I hope that it meets that. I'm very excited just to kind of know what that is. Also excited that it's going to be releasing with the computer same day, so I can just get that and just kind of roll that out. Cool with that.
But yeah, overall, I left this E3 week very positive. Spider-Man, another game I'm excited for. Shadow of the Colossus, obviously, one of my favorite games of all time. Hopefully, they nail specifically with that game a lot of the vibes that the first one had, like some of the atmospheric tone that was present in that game. Obviously, a lot of that is due to hardware limitations at the time, but I still want to see a similar tone from it.
Right.
But yeah, no, overall, I like E3 this year, and I'm looking forward to fucking, especially, Mario.
Yeah.
That's probably, it has to be, if I don't know, I don't want to say a top 3 because, that can change at any moment, but Mario is definitely up there, though.
Mario's the game I'm looking forward to. Mario and Rabbids was the game I'm looking forward to. It was definitely one of the games where I kind of left really hot on in the show. Dragon Ball.
Oof. See, I forgot about that in this moment.
So, like, like that's one of the ones I'm super hyped on.
Yeah.
I think about other things like, I'm interested in seeing what Crackdown actually wants it being or not. As a person who did really like Crackdown 1, excuse me, but didn't really like 2. I'm hoping that it can kind of hit that for me where it really, that original hit. Kind of want to see what's going on with Sea of Thieves too, because again, really fun, but I'm hoping it actually has some kind of meat to it. Looking forward to seeing more of like what's going on with Far Cry in terms of what it actually pans out to being, and hoping that it does kind of hit those things it needs to be. Being very surprised pleasantly with Wolfenstein, like it's seeing it's actually something that's coming out relatively soon, and that it looks like it's taking things in an interesting direction in terms of where that lore has been, because we've never really seen like what their take on like America is, and I think that's also very fits in with contemporary times. So that's an interesting thing for me. I'm kind of excited to see how that kind of plays out. Hopefully, it isn't too,
In the past couple Far Cry games have had bombastic villains, so hopefully this continues that trend.
Yeah, but for Wolfenstein though, like I'm hoping that like because obviously they've always been kind of like cartoonish also.
Yeah.
But that's something that I'm looking forward to, is because like. Fuck it. I'm at a point where like killing Nazis would feel pretty good, so that would be okay. So like if I can brutalize some Nazis, I'm all right with that. So it wouldn't be so bad.
Right.
And then like I think about other things too that are a little bit more off in the distance. Like God of War I think could be really good. Spider-Man I'm hoping. And then some of the known quantities. Like I'm very much still looking forward to Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza 6, but I know what those are. They've been out in Japan for a while. So like also Yakuza is coming out in like August, so like I could go either way with that. So like it's not something that I would put necessarily as like a game of show, but it's something that I'm definitely like hot on. But I'm a long time Yakuza fan, so that's where I kind of land with that. But I left E3 not feeling necessarily negative on it, but I think feeling more of like a hard to find the words to put it. Like, I wouldn't say I was necessarily not positive either. I feel like it was very much like an E3 2006 Part 2. And I feel like we saw some things.
There's definitely something to be said, though, for sure, with the lack of huge surprises,
Not even surprises so much as it's just like, give me stuff and then give me the stuff. You know what I mean? Like, say I'm coming out with this thing and then let me give you money and then give me the thing. Don't like make it be like I'm gonna give this thing, but give me the money. 4 years later, I'll give you the thing. You know what I mean? Like I want things to be here and tangible and there for me to play. And the sooner that happens, the better. And I feel like this year there are some things that are going to be tangible. So I have things to look forward to. I think this year is still going to be very exciting. October is going to be a very busy month. Yeah. November too. I think those are going to be like very busy months. And out of like when you think about this year, we had a very good beginning. first half of this year was very good. So like even if the back end of it kind of falters a bit, that might not be the worst thing. But
back end that has Mario Odyssey, I don't know.
That's kind of the thing though, is like I'm gonna play Mario Odyssey and then like I'm kind of like, it's weird because then it feels like kind of like November.
Xenoblade.
Yeah, that's probably going to be December, I guess. And then you'll have Pokemon in November. And I'm trying to think of what else is really coming out in November. Call of Duty. Most of the stuff seems October, not November, to be honest.
Assassin's Creed
October's going to be big.
October, right?
Yeah.
Battlefront 2?
I think that's October.
Yeah.
Crackdown's October 7th.
Yeah.
Well, actually, or is that November 7th? October or November?
It's
same day as the X. So
the
which is that? November, October?
November?
All right.
I want to say November.
I could go either way. I'm not sure. I know it's the 7th, so it's either October 7th or November 7th. Either way,
it might be October now.
It's going to be something where I know October's packed.
Anyway.
Exactly. So October's going to be packed either way. So it's going to be a weird thing where it's like I think once October hits, I think we're kind of like, that's it. You know, year's done.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how it goes, you know. Stuff to look forward to.
When's Gamescom?
Usually it's in like August, I think.
Right now, right? It's August.
Yeah, I think so.
It's always in August.
And then we'll have TGS in September, and then Nintendo will have Directs all throughout the year. We'll have the PSX in, I want to say that was always in January, is when they've done that. And then I don't know what Microsoft is going to do, if they're going to jump on the yearly fan train like PSX is, or if they're going to do more direct style stuff. Or what? Not too sure where they land on that. They need to do more, I think.
Yeah, definitely. They need to have because they used to have those X10 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those events specifically for Xbox, and they don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
Although I would like it if they maybe instead of having like a weekend long conference or whatnot, maybe they'll just have a direct.
I think Direct's the way to go. It's kind of the same thing even with PSX, where like PSX is nice, but also it's like, I'd rather have like every 3 months you do a direct. Like I've grown accustomed to and really love the direct style where it's like, all right, so we really want to talk to you about this one game. So here's like a 10-minute thing on this one game. Yeah. Or like, here's what we want to do to promote like the next game coming out for like, you know, the next the next quarter. So like, here's the things coming out for the next 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. Like it just seems like such a smart way to go about doing it that I feel like everyone should adapt that. The treehouse style, I think, is also the way to go with E3. But like when you saw like Sony this year try to adapt that, it kind of failed. Like it was like they tried to do something where it was like scheduled shows and stuff, but it didn't really work out to be as interesting. And what they were kind of doing was just rerunning trailers and shit, as opposed to like live demos and stuff like that, or reveals and announcements and shit. But certainly things to be looking at in this year, and there's cautious optimism from me, I guess, towards where things are going from now into the future of the E3 and video games and beyond. It's things to look forward to. A thing to mention real quick is like a certain lack of VR, PlayStation had some.
A little section.
PlayStation, Sony did,
right.
And that was kind of it.
Yeah.
Bethesda had some stuff.
I'm kind of glad with that, though. Maybe if they reel it back a bit, even though it's definitely not in Sony's best interest right now, specifically, or anyone with a VR offering. But I'm as someone who's not invested in VR right now, I'm okay if they maybe step back from it, at least marketing.
I agree. And as a person who has a Oculus and a PSVR, so I mean, I'm even in the system, but I feel like it's just
in the system.
Oh, I'm in it. I'm jacked in it. But I feel like it's a stark contrast to like 2 years ago even, or like even last year, where it was like, VR's the new thing, baby. Get in, do it. And then it was sobering to me actually to watch some of the interviews afterwards, and some of the people who were like so gung-ho about VR in the last couple of years maybe say we might have maybe pushed too hard on VR to try to get it to be the next big thing. And I think that people have unreasonable expectations about what VR is and can do. And I mean, we could probably have like a whole separate discussion on that. But
it's like that question was always raised, and it still is a thing. Is it still too soon for VR right now? Is it? Are we not at a place where it's consumer ready or affordable?
Right.
So,
but it was just like this year specifically, seeing certain developers. And they just came out and they're like, I think like we had that push to try to like make it so that the market was there and existed. And then I think that like the audience just wasn't they're just not there yet on a consumer level. It's still priced too high, and living spaces are too small, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And it was just something to kind of watch, like the immediate, like kind of like, you know, the thing we thought was going to be the future is still going to be something that we think is an inevitability, but it might be a little bit further off than we think. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing to kind of see where these things go with that. You know, I'm interested in seeing if I actually plug in a VR headset. Doom looks cool. That's kind of it. And that's, I guess E3 2017. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll discuss themes that we raised in this for future content, and then we'll probably do something similar for Gamescom.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably do something for TGS. Yeah. There's gonna be a whole bunch of content from us, so you can look over here and over here, and all over the world place. Check our YouTube. Watch us on Twitch. Yeah. Follow us on Twitter.
All the social media. Excuse me. Social medias, you can reach us at IXI Club. Really, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube.
Yep.
Email theIXIClub@gmail.com.
Email's very good, actually. It's a good thing you print that out, because we want to definitely start collecting some emails and questions and topics of further discussion from you all, so that we can start putting them into our weekly podcast that we're gonna
trying to get through again.
Yep. So that we can make sure we're addressing and getting some of these engagement up, and then we can get you all in and, you know, involved with what's going on. We love our fan, and we love to have involvement with our fan.
So, you specifically, where can they reach you?
If you want to reach me at Twitter, you can reach me at Asadasa.
ASADASA.
Exactly.
For me, FUNKNOWN, you can reach me on Twitter. I mean, I'm trying to get the FUNKNOWN tag. This is another thing that's been going on. But right now, you can reach me at unknown IXI. Any final words?
E3 is good. We'll see what happens. Interested in seeing what happens with E3 next year.
But will we see Final Fantasy VII Remake at next E3?
No, but it also won't be out.
I think I should let me drop this one word like I did on the last one. You ready? Got that little trigger finger ready? All right.
Do it.
Metroid.